All right. Good evening, everybody. The time is 7 o'clock and it's time to get this meeting going. So Ciara, would you please do roll call?
Yes. Counselor Williams, Counselor Purser,
Here.
Counselor Parrish,
Yes.
Counselor Stolarczyk,
Here.
and Counselor Miller.
Present.
So Aaron is excused. Before we jump into the moment of silence, I do have something that I do want to read, just so we have it on record. Managing a city involves considerable effort and collaboration, and it is inevitable that disagreements will arise among council members, staff, and the public. While it is natural to feel passionate and sometimes even frustrated during these discussions, we must remember that threats, either direct or indirect, against anybody, whether council members, a city employee, or a member of our staff, are absolutely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Our zero tolerance policy for such behavior is strict. Any incident will be thoroughly documented and, if warranted, prosecuted. In Fruita, we are committed to upholding our core values, being tough on issues while maintaining kindness towards people. We strive to resolve challenges fairly and effectively, no matter how daunting they may seem. Let's remember that we must work together, respect differences of opinion as an opportunity to work together and strengthen our community. So with that, I'd like to ask everybody to stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, we have an agenda set forth before us. Are there any changes to the agenda?
And no changes to the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
See, we're being very formal tonight. All right. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as before us.
Seconded.
In a second. Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Would you kindly poll council?
Counselor Purser, Counselor Parrish,
Yes.
Counselor Stolarczyk,
Yes.
Counselor Miller, and Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. All right. With that, we are moving into proclamations and presentations. So first up, we have proclaiming Wednesday, June 19th as Juneteenth Day. Andrea, would you care to read the proclamation?
Whereas President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring the slaves in Confederate territory free, paving the way for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States of America. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years to June 19th, 1865, in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. And whereas Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the abolition of slavery and the emancipation of African American slaves in the United States, and continues to grow within communities throughout the country, including Mesa County. And whereas there are organizations in the Grand Valley, such as Black Citizens and Friends, promoting and cultivating knowledge and appreciation of African American history and culture, while encouraging equity and respect for all people and cultures. And whereas the city of Fruita is an inclusive community that encourages a diversity of cultural opportunities, and whereas Black Citizens and Friends is hosting a Juneteenth celebration on Saturday, June 15th, 2024 at Lincoln Park from 2 to 6 p.m., therefore, we, the Fruita City Council, declare Wednesday, June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth Day in the city of Fruita, Colorado, acknowledging its significance and encouraging our community to join in the celebration of African American history.
Thank you. David, would you like to come up and say a few words? Would you please come up and say a few words?
I always have more than a few words to say. But the first thing I'd like to do is thank you all for the recognition. it's ironic that we talk about those who have come before us. That's our theme this year, and it's about messaging. What will happen is you will be those that have come before others, and we appreciate that and we thank you for that. Many people out there have a tendency to forget. They believe that with the abolition of slavery, people were quote unquote freed. However, as we all know in these times, that freedom is a challenge. And because of such, we're all employed to reach out to others. And that's what our Juneteenth is about. It's really ironic that we celebrate Juneteenth prior to the 19th. And the reason why is it's about messaging. Our celebration doesn't include vendors. It's all about individuals that can provide different information and or services to those in attendance. I've reached out to you, and you will be part of that celebration, and we appreciate that, simply because there are those that don't believe that there is the need for them to be involved. So I not only personally applaud you, but I think the community also applauds you. So thank you.
Thank you. David,
Where are you going, friend?
where are you going? Well, I didn't see you going. Just have a photo.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. Yep. Come down. Oh.
I'm glad you're still on good speaking terms.
Thank you, David.
Got bad quick.
Yeah.
They could have. That is the most awkward segue. All right, next, Janine, we have the proclamation proclaiming June 24th as LGBTQ plus Awareness Month. If you'd like to read that proclamation.
Yes. Whereas the city of Fruita recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2024 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, pansexual, two-spirit, androgynous, asexual, and all other persons who identify under the LGBTQ plus umbrella as LGBTQ plus Awareness Month. And whereas the rainbow flag is recognized as a symbol of LGBTQ plus pride, inclusion, equality, and support for social movements that advocate for the LGBTQ plus people. And whereas all human beings are born equal and free in rights and dignity, LGBTQ plus individuals have had an immeasurable impact to the civic, cultural, and economic success of our country. And whereas the city of Fruita is committed to supporting the visibility, dignity, and equality of LGBTQ plus people in our diverse community, and whereas it is essential to acknowledge that the need for continued education and awareness will remain vital to end discrimination and prejudice, and whereas the nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and the city of Fruita, Colorado calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice and discrimination everywhere it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Awareness Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Fruita's LGBTQ plus community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance in the community, and advance equality rights. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fruita City Council hereby proclaims the month of June 2024 as LGBTQ plus Awareness Month in support of the LGBTQ plus community.
Great, thank you. Jared, would you kindly come up? Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to come in front of you and to talk about
the LGBTQ plus community. And thank you for this proclamation. I think a lot of times simple things like a proclamation kind of go unrecognized. And it is a small, simple document that has Fruita's seal affixed to it. But when it comes down to it, it really gets to the spirit of the proclamation and really the spirit of Pride Month. I think that there is oftentimes a miscommunication and a misunderstanding of what Pride Month is, that it's all about parties and it's all about going to the bar and drinking. And while those things do happen, it's more than that. It's about equity. It's about inclusiveness. It's about diversity and celebrating that diversity. And that is something that is a part of your position, a part of your job on this council, is to represent those that are diverse and those that are different from you in this city and in this municipality. So we appreciate the opportunity. I do want to say I was a little nervous to go after David because he always has such impactful words. But a lot of what he talked about is similar to the struggle that the people in the queer community within the Valley, but more specifically also within Fruita, encounter on a regular basis. So this proclamation goes a long way to be able to establish the equity and the ability for us to be seen and for that to be okay. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. You just want to introduce your.
Yes.
Yes.
I apologize. This is Avery Ashby. She is the president of Colorado West Pride.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Want to say anything? Or?
Way more eloquent than I.
Right. And our last but certainly not least proclamation is Fruita's Inclusivity Proclamation. Rich, would you kindly read that?
Thank you. Whereas Fruita strives to be a community based on mutual respect and understanding, a community that welcomes and values all residents, treating everyone with human dignity and respect. And whereas people of all races, religions, nationalities, genders, sexual orientations, ages, physical abilities, and cultures live and work together within Fruita and bring pride to our community. And whereas racism, intolerance, bigotry, and fear lead to discrimination and discord, which threatens the strength, diversity, health, and safety of our community. And whereas the city of Fruita welcomes all people who recognize the rights of individuals to live their lives with dignity, free of racism, discrimination, intolerance, bigotry, and hostility. Therefore, we, the Fruita City Council, declare that our community is committed to making Fruita a welcoming, inclusive, and safe community for everyone. We condemn racism and those who attempt to fan the flames of bigotry and intolerance. We, on behalf of all Fruita residents, deplore expressions and acts of hostility, intimidation, and harassment, and instead encourage the elimination of racism and prejudice everywhere it exists. We hereby affirm our commitment to ensure that all members of our community are free from acts that are rooted in fear, ignorance, prejudice, and hate, and we urge all citizens to judge one another only by the strength and qualities of their character.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to accept this? All right. We get to see you guys again. This is awesome.
It's really ironic because we stand before you as individuals that proclamation addresses. You look at this town, you look at this county, you look at this state, and Jared and I are reflective of a small percentage. However, we let our presence be known, and it is done with your assistance. because of such, it's people like us. I lived in Fruita. When I first moved into the valley, I lived in Fruita back in 1980. And it was small. It was small town America for me. I never had been to a place like this. It was always welcoming. That was one of the things that I always remember, that Fruita always welcomed people who looked like me, even though I heard various stories of adversity that people of color faced when they came to the Western Slope. And so myself and Jared, we want to accept this Inclusivity Proclamation on behalf of all of those who look like us, who think like us, who opt to be part of this community.
Jared, you're right. He's a hard act to follow.
I know, that's why I don't have a whole lot to add, except for I was kind of thinking about it while he was talking, and while that was being read, that my husband and I, having done foster care and kind of putting ourselves in positions of leadership within the state and the community, have always kind of had the kind of the words in mind that ultimately, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And stuff like this helps us to kind of take that first step of being able to be seen, so that we can set that example for other people, so that they can then take the mantle, because ultimately we're not always going to be here. And while there is a fight, I definitely will be. And while there are people to represent, I definitely will be. And that's never going to stop. But we need additional people to do that. So if they can't see people like us and see people like you setting the example, then we can't meet those expectations in the future. So we appreciate this.
Thank you both. Glad you can see our still in good.
Thank
Whoa,
Wait a minute. I was told they did well. One more.
One more, guys. All right. Our last item in this section is a presentation, which is the capital plan for 169 South Mulberry, presented by the new owner, which
A new owner.
is a strange way to kind of put your name out there. But if you'd like to stand up and introduce yourself, that'd be appreciated.
Oh, new owner.
Hey, new owner.
That's your new name from now on. New owner, man, that's, you just get that all day now.
Oh, boy. I preferred farm, honestly. Although there were other things I didn't prefer, so I guess I'll take that. Mayor Brennan, council members, thank you for having us. This is Claire von Munt-Franz. She is the architect on this project and is going to present the architecture drawings. They are very preliminary, so I just want you to know that. They're going through building department review and zoning review right now. We hope they go easy on us. A quick update before we dive into the presentation. Let me give you something to look at. But I think some of you know directly that Sarah Wood has decided to move to the Front Range. So I'm looking at this point. She is bowing out a farm and pursuing other professional pursuits with kind of larger tech companies in the Front Range. So I certainly am not that, and I don't think we have very many of those here in the Grand Valley. She'll be missed. Okay, so to jump into this, let's see here. So we closed 10 days ago, and Deb and Dan and Mike were there. They were merciless at the closing table. You had walked out. They threatened to walk out if we didn't show them the drawings. They held the closing hostage until they got enough free pens. So I think you could. Allocation for Dan in
They
particular.
did as instructed. It was.
Yeah.
Apparently so. They also heckled us as we signed our loan document. New owner actually means new bank loan. But we survived and we're here to give you a prelim. I do actually have to put in quotes, these are not approved for construction because they are in for building permit. So I'll let Claire walk you through the drawings and where we are with the design. And then I'll jump back in and talk to you about what we've done so far and our next steps.
Sure. Nice to meet everyone, sort of, see everybody. Yeah, there's not, I'll keep this fairly short. You guys are all familiar with the building. And I think the building is the sort of biggest asset of the site, obviously. The iconic shape of the warehouse, and just the sort of existing character of both spaces, I think are incredible assets. And so we're trying to keep any kind of architectural interventions really minimal and just leverage what is already there. Most of these sort of images sort of speak to the exterior character that we're aiming for, which is, you know, a pretty minimal palette to try to leverage those existing assets and the existing assets of the site with sun and shade and shadow as the sort of more animating forces. Most of the exterior character of the building will remain. It will obviously get cleaned and kind of tidy it up a little bit on the buildings themselves. As we move kind of through these a little bit, you know, it's an incredible location, right? It's like at the end of this block, you have the view of the tower, the view of the monument, and I think anchoring the end of the block with something iconic that can kind of draw people to it will be a huge asset for Fruita and for that block in general. But in terms of architecture, we're looking at new garage doors, some exterior improvements in terms of new skylights and swamp coolers, new pedestrian doors, kind of giving everything a facelift, new exterior lighting to make it feel friendly and safe and secure at all times of day, but not too much lighting so that it's right for any neighbors or anyone. You know, a fine balance to strike in every situation. And then the upgraded parking lot to the south of the lot. So yeah, so here we're looking at some exterior elevations, the east and south facades, and some, you know, potentially graphic signage that tells you where you are, is tenant specific, depending on who ends up in there. And hopefully just, you know, a vibrant character to the outside of the space that makes it a fun place to be. Interior improvements are fairly minimal. A new ADA accessible bathroom in the larger space, potentially too. We're still kind of working through that. But cleaning and painting, new light fixtures, new fan, kind of just a giant refresh of the interior. If you've been in there, you know that it needs it. But again, like I think the architectural character of the existing building is pretty awesome, and we're trying our best to keep it that way.
Any questions so far?
Keep going, new owner.
Awesome. So let's see, just a quick list of what has happened so far. Before we closed, we walked the property with John and Jen and made sure that we were, John Anderson and Jen Wooten made sure that we were on track. We walked it again immediately afterwards with Jen Wooten, submitted and got a demo permit, and then had electricians in the first day that we owned it, or the first day after the weekend. We've since sort of done a once through, which took 3 days, but a once through with a crew of electricians, cleaned up a fair amount of old electrical work, made it safe, and detached it from all the stuff that we were going to demo. We've started to clean out the interior. We've demoed the, well, we dove right into the parking lot. So we figured that that would be appreciated. Back right up and
I
make.
had to park there for Mike and it was blocked off.
Was. And you know what? I was very sad. I actually apologized in advance to Mike and Dan, but we were told to let the new chip and seal cure for 4 or 5 days before people parked on it. And we figured it was not headless chicken ready. Right after. So,
No, I was excited to see the chip seal, but I was like, oh, shoot, I can't park here.
yep. So we got new chip seal down. And then we have also in the back, let's see, those are coming through reasonably well. In the back, we've torn off the majority of the old sheds. So the one small remaining shed there is actually a part of the original building. It was the old mechanical room for the original building. So that will stay with a few minor improvements and some additional cleanup and then painting. Here's the other view of that area. Oops, a little zoomed in.
I don't know how you're gonna beautify that. I mean,
Well,
it's so beautiful as it is.
I'm expecting white paint to go a long way.
It'll take much.
Yeah.
And then we're in for building permit. Our next steps are continuing with construction. The giant vacuum shows up tomorrow, so Mr. Vac comes and we've got an all-day, try and clean the place up as much as possible before we get to scrubbing and mopping. And then we will be ripping immediately into, as soon as we get a building permit issued, we'll rip immediately into roof, electrical work on the interior. Garage doors are about 5 weeks out and skylights are about 4 weeks out. So it will look like this for a little while here, but then it will start to take leaps and bounds. We are thrilled to, and some of you may already know this, but Best Slope is going to move into the small adjacent area for their coffee roasting business only. So they're going to do what they've been doing in the storage containers behind Best Slope. They're going to expand that to 1,300 square feet. They will be offering a little bit of drip coffee and they're going to do classes, roasting classes, pour over, demos, that sort of thing, tastings out of that space, but not change the cafe vibe of the coffee shop that you guys must rely on. So we're thrilled to have Best Slope in. We're continuing to look for a tenant for the largest space. We don't have anybody committed to that yet. But we will be doing a few upgrades for Best Slope. They'll be moving in a bunch of roasting equipment and small wash. And that's about it that I have for you at this point. Just wanted to catch you up. We spent a lot of months talking about what this might be one day. And so I thought it was appropriate to give you an update.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any questions from anybody?
Questions for Claire or Gavin?
See, I didn't expect this to even be at this point yet, but you were saying that it wasn't ready for the parking for Mike. Is that meaning that we're gonna be able to start having people park there soon?
Yeah, we have to wait 30 days to stripe it.
Okay.
So 30 days from when the chip seal was done, but we reopened it, I think today. If not today, tomorrow, it'll be back open. We put bags over the public parking signs
Sure.
just to discourage people, but that's back open and it's available at this period. So, and it'll be striped and bumpered. We've got them scheduled for whatever the 31st day is. So it'll be
Thanks, guys.
right on deck.
I have-
And we will be striping 25 spaces. 2 of those are ADA. The agreement was 20, but
Right.
what exists is 25.
Well, this new owner is pretty cool.
We'll be here, then we're winning. We're doing something right.
That old dude, he was kind of sketchy.
I wanted to say.
Great stories.
I wanted to say thank you for seeing the value in the building that exists because it is to most people not something, it's an eyesore as has been mentioned, but it's like my husband's favorite, one of his favorite buildings in the whole town. And it just has some beautiful memories and things like that to go along, like history that goes with it. And
It
so
does.
thank you for valuing that.
Has some deep history, and I welcome anybody to swing by. Nick Wilson's the construction manager that's there. He's there or in farm every day. He'll give you a tour. The inside is actually cooler than the outside. The inside and the steel trusses are gorgeous, and there's the skylights and just the way the natural light works. It's actually a really cool space on the interior. So very plain, simple exterior and really cool space on the interior. So come on over. Get a tour from Nick anytime. Or I'll be there most of the day tomorrow. Okay,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other
Thanks a lot.
questions?
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Lot better.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm confident in our decision.
Okay, next we're going to move into public participation. This section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on this agenda. Generally, the city council will not discuss the issue and will not take an official action under this section of the agenda. We ask that you please limit your comments to a 3-minute period. Is there anybody here that would like to come up and speak? Please come on up, state your name.
My name is Tessa Bynum. Do I need to do my address?
Yes, please.
I live at 255 North Ash Street. I've spent the majority of my life living here in the city, and I was born in the same house that I live in right now. I'm an amazing mom myself to 2 amazing daughters. They're 6 and 8. And for the last 11 months, I've been the full-time caretaker to my dad, Ken Bynum, who was in this room almost a year ago. I'm also in the last year at CMU to become a social worker. I'm here today because I am deeply concerned about the number of vehicles that drive up and down my street and the amount of speeding that happens on my street. So there's been an increase in traffic on my street because of multiple things, including the middle school, but also because of the 3 Airbnbs that are on my street. I've contacted Fruita Police Department multiple times, and they acknowledge and accept that speeding is a huge problem on my street, but because of how narrow the street is, they can't do anything. So I'm here to raise awareness and to start problem solving and to request a traffic study to be done on the 200 block of North Ash. So I urge you all to drive down my street. And while you do that, I want you to think about the facts that I'm going to give you right now. First, it is the second most narrow street in Fruita. The first is South Ash, and it's a one-way street. So my street, my block, measures 19 feet wide. The second fact that I'm going to give you is that in 2018, the CDOT roadway design guide states that a road of medium development urban area should be 28 to 34 feet wide. The third fact that I'm going to give you is that in the Fruita use code, 1741-010, whatever that means, states that all streets in the city of Fruita must meet the design criteria and construction specification manual, which states that streets must be 44 feet wide. And then my last fact is that in February of 2022, the city council adopted the Fruita circulation plan, which states that all streets in Fruita city limits, including existing ones, must be 44 feet wide and have 10 to 11 foot wide travel lanes in each direction. Now, I don't think that we should widen my street. I don't want to make all my neighbors angry. That's not what I want. But I think the first step is to gain more information. I've thoroughly considered multiple options to solve this problem. All of them have pros and cons. But I've considered speed bumps, speed limit signs. There's no speed limit signs on the entirety of Ash Street. And so I think that I have opinions, but you guys also have opinions, and it's up to you guys to figure out what to do next. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to? Please, sir, come on up, state your name and address.
My name is Tom McNamara. Live at 1768 Waters Lane, just outside the Fruita city limits, but our address is Fruita. So we moved here 25 years ago next week and love it. I've been a Rotarian for 24 of those 25 years. And I just wanted to come to thank you and the city in general and the rec department and all of those employees who made it available to us to generate income for our Rotary Club at our beer booth this last weekend. It was phenomenal. Without your cooperation, without your help and assistance, it would not have happened. Now, I remember back in 1999, when we first moved here, it was the second year of Mike the Headless Chicken. There was a Rotarian and a pastor and Rondo, if y'all know Rondo, who sat down with somebody in the city and decided that there would be a Mike the Headless Chicken Festival, or that there should be. And Steve DeFader, representing the Rotary Club, brought it all to everybody's attention. So it's developed grandly since then, to the point now where we have 2 nights of grand music. I imagine you were responsible for some of that. Okay. But I learned it was Travis Tritt's daughter that played Saturday night, sang Saturday night. So again, thank you. I don't want to make any big issue of any matter at all, but we are able now to make contributions back to the city and to the tune of about $30,000 this year, which we do each and every year. $10,000 of scholarships go to graduates from Fruita Monument High School. And the other $20,000 is dispersed mostly for children's activities. We just bought 4 sets of golf clubs for the rec department to teach children to golf at Adobe Creek. Those are the things that we do. Without your help, we wouldn't be able to do that. So thank you again. And we hope we can be back next year and make it bigger and better.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else that would like to get up and speak? Going once, going twice. All right. With that, I'm going to close public participation, and we're going to move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council for final action. These items will be approved by a single motion of the council. Members of the council may ask that an item be removed from the consent section and fully discussed. All items removed from the consent section will then be approved. A member of the council may vote no on one specific item without asking that they be removed from the consent section for full discussion. Any items that is removed from the consent agenda will be placed at the end of the regular agenda. All right.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
You have a first?
Such an extensive agenda.
I know. Second.
Mr. Mayor, we may need to open up public comment for the consent agenda before a motion can
Apologize.
be
Thank
made.
you. I wasn't following my notes. At this time, we should open it up for public comment. Is there anybody? No, thanks for keeping me on track. I'm the new guy on the job. Anybody that would like to make public comment on the consent agenda? All right, with that, we'll close public comment.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any other concerns, questions? All right, would you kindly poll council?
Counselor Parrish,
Yes.
Counselor Salarczyk,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Williams, and Counselor Purser.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. With that, we are going to move into our legislative hearing tonight. And first up is ordinance 2024-12, second reading, an ordinance amending chapter 8.08 of the Fruita Municipal Code regarding garbage and solid waste. And Assistant City Manager Shannon Vasson, you are up.
As always, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council for the opportunity to present to you tonight. Ordinance 2024-12 is an update to Chapter 8 of our Fruita Municipal Code, which spells out regulations regarding garbage and solid waste collection within the city of Fruita. This past year, we made a few changes to our trash collection services. Those were mostly driven by the contractor that the city uses for Fruita, but also the industry standards as a whole. Some of those changes included moving all residents to 96-gallon containers or a smaller 64-gallon container if they opted for that, switching to single-stream recycling for all residents that participate in that, and then also adding a few additional things as part of our trash collection services, such as a post-holiday dumpster available for residents to dispose of material after the holidays, 3 weeks of leaf cleanup, and a few other items. With that, we need to update our code to kind of reflect what our current contract is with the contractor. So the municipal code amendment before you tonight details out that now residents can use 96-gallon containers for trash collection services. Our prior code just stated that they can use up to 32 gallons, so we're just updating that. There were some comments on the first reading about being more specific about what type of containers that residents can use. So you'll notice right here, the last sentence we did add that residents may only use containers that are provided through the city. This was a change that we made this past year, which I think will be beneficial in the long run, mostly because it's no longer up to residents to pay and provide their own trash cans. Now it's all provided through our contractor. And if it gets damaged or anything else gets lost in the truck, we can replace that kind of free as charge, whereas before they had to kind of upfront those costs overall. For businesses, we also updated the language to include 96-gallon containers. Again, we don't require any sort of commercial trash use through the city. They all do that kind of independently. We also added the sentence that if you do have any issues with your container, you shall report it to the city to be replaced. We removed all weight restrictions with how much trash can be in a container. Prior to this new contract, there was technically a 50-pound limit because people were on the back of a truck and they were loading it and they were putting it in the truck manually. Now that weight restriction can be removed since it's all automated. And then we also specified where the containers shall be placed, which we included this sentence: containers must be placed with wheels facing the curb and 3 feet from any other object. And forward, continue to further describe that should be placed at the edge of the street with the opening of the lid facing the roadway, both wheels facing the residents up against the curb when available. Again, this is just to kind of conform to current industry standards and also our current trash and recycling service within the city of Fruita. So with that, staff recommendation is to adopt ordinance 2024-12. I will be happy to answer any questions after public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. With that, we'd like to open this up to the public. If anybody would like to speak or make comment on that, now's your time to do so. Small crowd tonight. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public participation and bring it back to council.
Shannon, you mentioned the 64-gallon also, but it's not in here.
Yeah. I can go back and share that again. So the language says up to 32 gallons. So now the updated language says up to 96 gallons, no larger than 96. So just so people know, they can always get a smaller container. You know, there is a few residences within Fruita that have opted to do the majority of the containers, the smaller ones. Thinking of Village of Country Creek as an example. People can always request those for both trash and recycling. They just have to do so at our front office.
Hey, Jen, are we noticing, I mean, obviously with anything as it goes into extended period of time, you're going to calm down on the complaining and all the things like that. But are we starting to find that it's kind of finding a level and people are starting to?
Yeah, you know, we still get calls every once in a while. I'd probably say we still get weekly calls, especially with irrigation turning on and people are having more yard. debris as well. So we get calls about that. And most of the time, we're able to help them out, like whether it's through an additional container or helping them out with other resources. But, all of those calls, we kind of take all of that feedback into consideration. We're also, I think, the next time around, or if there's other interim things we can do to help out the residents, we'll definitely will. It's just we're kind of taking that all into consideration and making note of that. Earlier on April 20th this year, we had our spring cleanup over at Public Works, and geez, Kimberly has the exact numbers, but I want to say we filled 5 40-yard dumpsters in 30 minutes, an hour,
Oh.
somewhere around there.
Is there a limit on that? Done with
there,
them? Are they going to try and place one, or is there one?
So there was no limit this year. I think we'll talk about whether or not we should require residency in the future, because right now it's kind of like on the honor system. I live in Fruita, can I drop this off? But yeah, we filled those up very quickly. But Kimberly and her team also did a number of things, like if there was yard waste, they took that, they put that off to the side and delivered that to the composting facility, or if they had any sort of other waste that can be diverted from that trash, they'll do that. So we're always looking at other things we can expand to help with kind of these more heavier kind of months where people have the additional trash and debris. Yeah.
I would add probably the most common call we've had recently, which wasn't what we were receiving earlier, is occasionally people's bins not being fully emptied when but it's in at least the majority of those cases, it's been where they have not bagged the trash. And so there's wet grass clippings or dirt that sticks at the bottom, which is one of the reasons the 4 written notices that went to every household describe bagging the trash. And so we've done some more education on that, but that's probably been the more common call since it's gotten time where people are cutting their lawns and things like that.
Yeah.
Doing more gardening.
And with the extra container too, we do tell people they can kind of start and stop whenever they want. So if they do have extra debris or trash, whatever it is throughout the year, they can get the container for a few months and then cancel and then reorder whatever they need to do. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for them during the transition, because we know there was going to be a period of time, definitely an education, a period of time where we know that we'd have some things that would come up. So yeah, always exploring other options to help residents with that.
I like the idea of next year, just making sure residents are free to get to use that. Can you refresh my memory? The 2 different sizes of trash cans that are available, are those the same cost?
They are, yeah. Some communities do charge different costs for the smaller containers. We just charge the 2 rates. We do have our normal rate, which is most of our residents pay that rate. I believe it's, $18.75 per month for unlimited, for the container and the recycling container as well. Then we have a senior rate, where if people meet 2 requirements, if they're over the age of 60 and they meet a income requirement, which is the same requirement that they use for like public welfare programs like Medicaid, food assistance, stuff like that, they actually get a reduced rate quite a bit as well. But yeah, that's something we could explore. We don't really, we would probably have to start having those conversations with waste management. We haven't done that yet, but a lot of other communities do charge less for the smaller container, which could always be an option as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 2024-12, second reading, amending chapter 8 of the Fruita Municipal Code regarding garbage and solid waste.
I second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional questions, comments? All right, hearing none, would you kindly poll council?
Yes. Counselor Stolarczyk,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
and Counselor Parrish.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, next up is resolution 2024-17, amending the 2024 budget with supplemental appropriations. And we have Shannon is up once again to present. Take it away.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council for the opportunity to present. Resolution 2024-17 is a supplemental appropriation of funds in the General Fund and the Capital Projects Fund for capital projects, road maintenance and repair, and also sidewalk and crosswalk improvements. We do a number of supplemental budget appropriations throughout the year. So with every budget amendment, I do like to include the table that you see usually on the third page, or if I'm a little wordy, on the fourth page of each cover sheet. So I'll go over those right now. This resolution has three things. The first is that we need to appropriate $5,000 in funds for road maintenance and sidewalk repair that was completed due to a contractor not completing work in the downtown area. Whenever someone excavates or digs in the right-of-way, they do pay for a permit, but they also pay for a right-of-way bond. That right-of-way bond is $5,000. So if there's any repairs we need to make after the fact, we can use that bond to make those repairs. And we did have an instance where they had to make repairs to sidewalks and the asphalt. So this appropriates those funds for that purpose. We also received a $5,000 grant from the Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado for sidewalk improvements to the crosswalk on Cherry Street near Family Health West. We've talked about that several times throughout this year. We got $5,000 in grant funding to help with that project. It's about $10,000 total. These improvements will include the removal of the existing curb and gutters, construction of a new ADA ramp, creating, installing new signage to really formalize the crosswalk that's there, and striping the crosswalk and curb faces. Again, expenses, we anticipate $10,000. We'll split that 50-50 with the grant. And finally, as our engineering and our planning department discussed at great length at our last meeting, we did get the bids back for the 19 road improvement project. That was right at $5.8 million overall, and we have $6 million included in the budget for this year, but that also included $500,000 in a contingency account or a force account. We anticipate with the $6 million with that bid, additional right-of-way, and the contingency account, we're going to be roughly at $6.97 million total. Earlier this year, council did appropriate $315,000 in unused right-of-way funds from the prior year's budget. So we have $6,315,000 available. So we need to appropriate an additional $600,000 to get us to where we can fully fund that contingency account and fully fund the right-of-way if it does go over budget. So we have two sources of funds for this. We have transportation impact fees that are designated for use in Northeast Fruita in the amount of $320,000. We do have a $330,000 contribution from the general fund if needed to fund that contingency account. Transportation impact fees, we have to use them for a specific purpose, and usually that includes to expand the roadways where the impacts are happening, and by state statute, we have to use them within a certain time limit. So we figure that this would be a good use of those fees and a good use to help with the project. So again, if you have any questions, would be happy to answer them after public comment, but staff recommends approval of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, for that prompt. With that, I'd like to open it up for public comment. All right. With that, I'd like to close public participation and bring it back to council. Questions, comments, concerns?
The only thing that I would be even remotely curious about would be the transfer out of the general fund of 330. Just because if anything, we would be questioned about what other fun things that could have been at and what the detriment.
Right.
Seeing there.
Right.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
So, would you address that to?
Yeah.
What are we missing out on anything else because we're going that way with those funds, or will they go?
Yeah, and that's a greilght question, Councilor Williams, because general fund dollars used for a variety of purposes. They help fund parks and recreation, public safety, roads, bridges, all of those things. Our fund balance for general fund is actually restricted in use. So just like we had in this past election, we asked the voters, can we keep revenues over a certain amount for one-time capital projects to help with to help with these types of projects, but also maintenance on the city's transportation and parks system. So technically, we have to spend these dollars on capital projects, capital equipment, things that help overall with the city's capital plan. So we think this is a great use of those funds. And it is only one-time funds as well. So if we do use these, the 310,000 in fund balance, one of our most important financial policies, you can only use one-time funds on one-time expenses. You can't use ongoing, or you can't use those funds for ongoing expenses because they will eventually run out. So this is an appropriate use. And as we'll discuss in the next presentation, the overall quality of city streets, traffic flow and congestion are the #1 and #2 priorities of Fruita residents. So we feel it's a very applicable use of those funds and an important one as well. But yeah, always something to consider when you're
Yeah,
working
no,
that out.
that, I think that clarifies it very well for anybody that have any questions about it.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question. So part of that 650 is so we have that contingency
Mhm.
fund.
Mhm.
If we only use, let's say if we have to dip into that contingency fund, what happens with the money afterwards?
If it doesn't get used, it goes back to the general fund and we can use it for other purposes. Yeah, we have a little bit of that with Reed Park. We had a $175,000 contingency account. We've spent roughly, I think, 75 on that. So anything that's not used will revert back to the general fund for future use.
How do we divvy up between what goes back to general fund versus what goes back to the impact fees? Does it pull from one first?
It does. It always pulls from impact fees first because by law, we have to use those on very specific purposes. So we'll use those. We can't use them for like right away or engineering design, but we use them for construction first. So we'll always, when we can, use those fees before we use the general fund dollars.
So there's an overall hierarchy of where they're coming from.
Yeah. That's a good question. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, with that, does anybody want to put forth a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 2024-17, amending the 2024 budget to appropriate funds in the general fund and the capital projects, road maintenance and patching, and for sidewalk and crosswalk improvements.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any additional questions, comments? All right, hearing none. Would you kindly poll council?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Miller,
Affirmative.
Counselor Williams,
On unkindly tonight.
unkind.
What does he mean from Sierra?
I know. Counselor Purser, Counselor Parrish.
Yes.
And Counselor Stolarczyk.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. All right, with that, we are going to move into the administrative agenda. And first up, Assistant City Manager. Shouldn't be first up. All right, overview of the 2021 community survey results.
Sure. Yeah. We didn't plan this that well, but nevertheless, thank you again, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council for the opportunity to present. As this group knows, for the last several meetings, we've been going over several of the city's master plans and kind of long-range efforts that will help facilitate and guide our decision-making for the next 10 years and really help with when we decide to go through budget, when we decide to go through strategic planning, we use all of this as a foundation to help with those decisions. So you've already heard about the comprehensive master plan update. We talked about the land use code. We presented on the Parks, Health, Recreation, Open Space and Trails master plan. Heard about the multimodal and circulation master plan. And tonight, the last couple, we're touching upon the results of the 2021 community survey. We'll talk about our communications efforts after this, and then we'll conclude with the most exciting presentation, sewer and wastewater. The community survey, we typically do every 3 to 4 years. It's really used as a tool to gauge resident satisfaction with the services that we provide, but also really hear from them on what we should prioritize in the future. Our last one, 2021, a lot has changed since 2021. And in fact, when we did this survey, only one of you were sitting up there, and that was at the time, Councilor Bremen. While we were on council, but also we were just coming off, council hadn't met in over a year, at least in person. We were all meeting virtually. We had countless state, county regulations due to the pandemic, all sorts of other things. So it was a very interesting time to do the survey. And I think some of the results kind of speak to what we saw overall in the pandemic. But next year will be our next survey. So we're kind of excited to see what we'll get from there. And we've made a lot of changes since then. So I think we'll definitely see that kind of in the results. I did include this presentation in the packet. It was from the contractor we used for the survey. I'm not going to go through all this. This presentation has been described by a previous mayor as overly thorough. So I'll touch upon the highlights. And if you want to stop for any questions, we definitely can. And if there's any information you specifically want, we can always dive into that and get back to you, because it is a pretty lengthy report, and it's the results are pretty lengthy as well. So just a little bit of background. ETC Institute did our survey, and they have done our last 4. They do the most surveys for local government organizations kind of throughout the country. This map up here kind of shows everywhere that they have done survey work, and they have some pretty sizable clients, such as City of Fruita, City of San Antonio, the RTD over in the Front Range, and quite a few. So they've been doing this for a long time, and they specialize in this type of work and this type of reporting and stuff like that. We use ETC for a number of reasons, but they have access to a lot of benchmark data, so we can compare our data to cities, all United States cities that they have surveyed, but also we can kind of segregate it further to just cities that have populations less than 30,000, less than 15,000, et cetera. So they have a handful of information that we can use and kind of help when we're comparing ourselves to other agencies across the United States. So what's the purpose of the surveys? We do them every 4 years. For a while, I think we were doing 3, but we moved to 4, I think 2 or 3 surveys ago. But yeah, the purpose, again, to objectively assess citizen satisfaction with delivery of our core services, to measure trends and how things are trending from previous surveys, to compare our performance with other communities, and to help determine priorities for the community and the council as a whole. Touch upon methodology briefly. This was the 4th community survey that was done by the ETC Institute. It was a pretty lengthy survey, 7 pages in total. We asked our respondents to really spend a lot of time on the survey. It took generally between 15 and 20 minutes total. So there was a lot of information on there, but I think if people were interested in providing that information, they took the time to do so, and we got some great results out of it. Super unique. We also mailed each survey to all households in Fruita. Generally, with a statistical valid survey, they will identify a random sample of homes, and they'll mail it out and hope that they get a certain number of responses. Usually 300 to 400 is more than enough for that. But we decided as a council, we wanted to mail it out to all residents for them to take the survey, and we got great results because of it. And again, I already talked about time to complete, and people had the opportunity to participate in mail, which is the traditional fashion of surveys, but they also received a unique online code to them where they can go and take the survey online as well. Of course.
Just real quick on the questions on that.
Yeah.
Where do you guys populate the questions from?
So we have a list of questions that we ask every year, and that's just to compare to prior years. Really, council and staff kind of get to decide if there's anything that we'd like to focus on this year. One year, we asked a lot of additional questions about Family Health West and our people's needs getting met through our local medical providers. This year, we asked a few additional questions excuse me, that were of interest to the council at the time. But when we go to create the survey next year, you all will be involved in that along with staff as well. So if there's anything that's like a hot topic, yeah. We actually reviewed it several times with the council. So I think we had a first draft, second draft, and we kind of tweaked what we were interested in at the time and went from there. So yeah, we'll all be involved along with staff. Again, sample size, our goal was 400 surveys total. We received 673 actual, which is a great response rate. Margin of error just refers to, if we were to do this survey 100 times, how many times would we get these exact same results? And 3.8% is a great margin of error at 95% level of confidence. So again, we were to do this exact same thing 100 different times, we'd get these same results 95% of the time, plus or minus that margin of error. We had a great turnout of respondents kind of throughout the entire city of Fruita. This is a map of everyone who participated in the survey. Now, as with any survey and as with any thing you're dealing with the public, there are certain ethical obligations that we have to meet, and all surveys have to be completely anonymous. So the dots you see here are general areas. They're actually census tracts that they use to report the data, but everything has been randomized slightly, so it actually doesn't show the exact address of the respondent, but it just shows like a general area of where they're from. We have access to all the data. We will never give that data to anyone else. It's completely confidential. If someone were to come to us and it's like, can you tell me who gave this open-ended response on X? We would say absolutely not, because once you take away the anonymous kind of background of that, people will be less willing to respond honestly, and that would kind of that would take away the whole purpose of doing the survey. So you'll see a lot of maps throughout this presentation, but just know all the information is random, but they can kind of see where we had people respond. And this is helpful if there's like information that you want to know, like I don't have it off the top of our head right now, but if you were like, I want to know what this age demographic in Kingsview does at Snooks Bottom, we could find that. Do people have access to high-speed internet in the downtown core? We could easily segregate those results by whatever you're interested in at the council level. So again, it's broken out by census tracts, but kind of all the maps, you'll see how people responded to that. Let's start with the bottom line up front. Overall, Fruita residents have a very positive perception of the city, which is great, and it's definitely something to accomplish or to celebrate. Let me take a quick drink of water here. Talking about overall quality of services, 84% of respondents rated the quality of services as excellent or good, and 93% of respondents rated the overall quality of life in the city of Fruita as excellent or good. Satisfaction in Fruita, as we all know, is much higher than other communities. When we talk about those benchmarks, we rated above the U.S. average in 32 of the 37 areas assessed, and satisfaction with the overall quality of services rated 25% above the U.S. average, and overall value received for taxes and fees rated 21% above the U.S. average. So very high numbers. We're very proud of those. Usually, we make this joke, people, they're not, when they have to pay taxes or anything, they don't run down to City Hall to do so, but rather our residents believe that even though they have to pay these taxes, they get good value in exchange for those taxes, which is always a good indicator of how people feel about your local organization, how people feel about the city as a whole. As an organization, though, we are always focused on continuous improvement, and we talk a lot about continuous improvement and how we can improve the quality of life for people in Fruita. So ETC Institute did recommend 4 priorities for improvement from the 2021 survey. These don't fluctuate very much, although the last 2 are new to this survey, but number 1 and 2 are always the overall quality of city streets, and they are the overall flow of traffic and congestion management. Always a hot topic. Traffic is always something that people are generally interested in. So when everything rates so good, you have to focus on something. We've seen in the past that the streets and traffic congestion management is that. 2 other priorities came from the survey, which is the representation you receive from the city council. That was something we saw in the pandemic, kind of decreased a lot. There was a lot of kind of mistrust of government kind of during the pandemic and everything that happened. So nationally, that statistic went down quite a bit. I'll be interested to see what happens when we poll next year. And then overall effectiveness of city communication is always an area for improvement. We actually rated really well on all of these, but when everything rates well, you do have to pick kind of what you want to focus on. So again, residents chose that they want to continue to focus on these efforts and increase the overall effectiveness of city communication.
I do remember when ETC presented these results, one of the things they mentioned was that when they see communities that don't have major issues, streets and congestion tend to be the highest. When there's something that's really going wrong, then they'll see something else. But when things are going pretty well, that tends to be a pretty common top choice. And again, as Shannon mentioned, these were all areas we had good scores on. It was just, we also asked, even if we're doing good, where do you want us to prioritize? And hopefully you've seen over the years since then, we've definitely beefed up the budget and the projects related to streets. And we also created the position that CR is in, and we have Ammon in as well, and have dramatically increased the amount of communications that, and type and the way we're communicating with the public. So we're eager to see those results next year.
Very excited to see those. So moving on to the bulk of the survey was spent on perceptions, and overall residents have a very positive perception of the city of Fruita. For all these graphs, the blue represent that people rated that specific question as excellent. The dark blue is excellent. The light blue is good. Kind of that peach or pink-ish color is these specific things are rated as below average or poor. And neutral is more of like, it's not necessarily no response, but it's like a passing grade. Don't really feel strongly in one way, don't really feel strongly in the other way. So you kind of pass, but there's always room for improvement of those. The top three are definitely probably one of the most important, and should be of interest to council and residents and staff as a whole, is that how do people feel about the overall quality of life in the city? And again, 93% of people feel that the overall quality of life is excellent or good. Overall feeling of safety in the city, over 80% rate that as excellent and good. The overall quality of services that we provide, it looks like almost 80% rated that as excellent or good. Actually, that's much above 80%. Yep, thank you. 84%. They say never do math on the fly, so I'm violating all of my rules. There are always areas for improvement, as you see with all of these graphs. There are ones towards the bottom which we know we need to improve on, but also residents respond on as well. Just looking at some of the bottom ones, availability of high-speed internet options, which we knew was a concern in 2021, and we've taken efforts to help with that. We now have fiber in Fruita and people actually on the fiber as well. And the overall image of Highway 6 and 50, we've taken some we've made some changes to our land use code to help kind of facilitate development along 6 and 50. So hopefully those will improve as we continue to do survey results.
I have a question
Oh,
about
of course, yeah.
previous one. So in areas like quality of new commercial development, quality of new residential development, where you have kind of like a lot of people that don't like it and a lot of people that like almost they're close.
Yeah.
What does that indicate?
Yeah. So
Polarized.
Yeah, I think one of the things is if you think about when we got these results and then when we were going through, we received them before we implemented the new feedback we got in the comprehensive plan. And then, but it was helpful as we took the comprehensive plan updates to the land use code updates, which led to kind of what Dan presented not too long ago, where we made quite a few changes in the land use code to reflect what people wanted to see in design and wanted to see in. So we felt like some of that was, it's interesting because the divide, like you were mentioning, but when we did the process, some of those processes, while they're not directly related to this, I think one of the things we learned is sometimes the words related to development and then the visuals related to development were far different. So we would have people that would say, no way it should be more than 4 units per acre. And then we'd have them pick visuals, and even not just in visuals of within Fruita. So they would pick, I want to see more neighborhoods like this one, and it would be some of the downtown neighborhoods, and those would be, pushing 7 units per acre. It'd be the same person that might have said no way more than 4 units per acre. But that allowed us to break down why. And then it was like, well, I like how there's not a garage in the front of the house. I like how there's, it feels like you're walking through a neighborhood. I like the way it's laid out and the way the yards are versus some of the newer development sometimes. And people have different opinions, of course, so you get a divide. But that was some of the information, like some of what we gleaned that wasn't necessarily directly related to these results, but it was in that same time frame when we were going through the comp plan, and then especially the land use code updates, which didn't finish till after these results. So I don't know if that it's hard to fully answer why a divide on that one, but at that same time frame, we were getting a lot of feedback on development, and hopefully that helps a little bit.
I think you're also going to always have that crowd that just immediately would respond negatively to the word development at all. Like it doesn't matter what part of it we're talking about. The no.
It's really
That's true.
17% that are rating it poor.
Yeah.
And then like 31 who's basically saying it doesn't
Yeah.
affect us.
Mhm.
It's not.
Right.
So that, when you add the good and excellent into the 17, the middle, the gray is like,
Right.
I don't really.
Yeah.
It doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter to them personally.
Yeah.
Right.
And do they play with wording ever? I mean, like development, yeah, that's kind of a.
Yeah, we definitely could. I think this is, in line with other results that we've done, so we compare year over year. But yeah, we'll definitely, when we go through the process, we can ask those questions. Is there a better way to ask this? So maybe there isn't as many kind of negative effects to it. But yeah, always a question to consider. But yeah, it's all about perception. So how somebody perceives something may be completely different. Margaret and I talk a lot about the traffic in Fruita, and this may be unpopular, but I spent 2 years in Denver. It's not that bad. But Margaret, who's been here 41 years, and she has to wait 2 stoplights to get on the south side. It's an issue. So it's all about your individual perception and kind of how you feel about these certain subjects. Yeah.
I will say there's been a lot of effort, if you look at those last 3, where we definitely took note, kind of related to your question, Andrea, but when you go into residential development, a lot of changes in the code, bringing in the building department so we can have a different level of inspection and on the quality side. I don't know how what we'll see in differences, but I know that a lot of effort put into some of those results. And then especially Highway 6 and 50 is a tricky one. I mean, there's not there were a lot of code changes that we're hoping spurs some development. It's exciting to see the development with the co-op tower. It's tricky in the aspect of there are some CDOT limitations that can make it challenging, but as we continue to see some of the investment, especially downtown, going south, and then we've seen some turnover on some facilities that are going to make some improvements, and so we're hopeful there. The last one, obviously, we took a pretty big approach to that by doing the middle mile project, and which was able to help bring in the first provider, and we hope to see others over time. We're a smaller market, so it's a tough competition, but we purposely did not go about bringing fiber into the community with an exclusive arrangement with only one provider. But that's turning on now. So, and by the time we're doing the survey next year, hopefully, the majority of people that wanted to sign up for that will at least have it and have some experience. So.
Great. We also, for the first time, some of these questions were on previous surveys, but we also asked some questions regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, a lot of blue on this graph. We specifically asked, do you feel safe going to the Fruita Police Department if you need it? And overwhelming amount of residents did share that they do, and they also felt that they feel welcome and have a sense of belonging in Fruita, which is also very important. The 2 challenging aspects on the bottom, again, Fruita has access to affordable and equitable housing for all income levels. That's a challenge that many agencies are facing, especially our own, but that's definitely things that we've been working on, the council has been working on as well. And I am treated equitably by the city's municipal court system. Only 2% disagreed with that, with 49% being neutral, so maybe they don't have experience kind of with that. But again, not everyone has exposure to those specific services or those specific things that we provide as a city. So that could sway the results, just based upon their experience with those services. Reasons to live in Fruita. We, again, ask people why do they love living in Fruita, and it's pretty much everything we heard throughout the comprehensive plan update, the Frost plan update, land use code, all that stuff. And kind of topping the list, small town atmosphere, over 90% rated as their needs are very well met or their needs are met. Quality of your neighborhood overall, again, 90%. Safety of your neighborhood, availability of recreation opportunities, all good things that we like to see as a staff. as a city as a whole. Again, looking towards the bottom, employment opportunities, availability of high-speed internet options, and access to quality shoppings are some of the ones that didn't fare as well, but we've always known that has been kind of an issue. And that's just an issue that I think a lot of smaller towns kind of face, because we're not going to have the resources that a Grand Junction, or we were in Montrose today, the Montrose has, just that people may have to commute to get some of those things. We asked the overall satisfaction with city services by major category. Again, this goes back to how people feel about the services that we provide in our core services. For I think every survey, the quality of garbage collection has been the top city service that we provide. I am very interested to see how that one goes next year. I will leave it at that. Overall quality of sewer service, again, our second best rated service. Does the sewer work? Do I have to worry about it? As long as those things are met, I think people are very satisfied. Overall quality of city parks, we've invested a lot in our city parks recently with the addition of the Bark Park, the Reed Park renovation, the water slide at the Fruita Community Center. I anticipate that we'll see some increases there, although it's already performing very well. Overall quality of police services, city's recycling program, et cetera. A whole lot of blue on this chart, which is very encouraging. The bottom four, again, focus on the top four priorities from the community survey: quality of city streets, traffic congestion management, and then the communication and the representation that we receive. So
You're gonna just go over that last negative, the quality of
city council representation.
you receive.
Yeah, yeah.
Help me understand.
Yeah, so this was not an open-ended question, so we don't have a ton of information on it. We could, at the time, the consultant recommended like maybe digging deeper into that and maybe doing focus groups to kind of really dive into what that means to people. But at the same time, they noted that kind of across the nation, this has went down significantly during the pandemic, just because there were a lot of, government requirements, a lot of government changes during the pandemic that really kind of took its toll on maybe how people feel and trust in government, like overall. So they kind of cited that could have been a contribution to that. But
Difference from previous surveys?
yeah, it has decreased. Yeah. So before it was people felt more positive about it, but it has decreased overall. So something that'll be interesting to watch for the next survey. And if we do include open-ended responses, we can always ask, what can we do to better help with this, right? But yeah, that one, no open-ended. So it's kind of hard to, or maybe guess why that way may be, minus it saw all across the nation that was decreasing, and what happened, quite a few government changes as a result of the pandemic.
40% just felt indifferent. So
Yeah. Yeah, and only 12.
Kind of it's not really super negative.
Yeah.
It's just.
And 12% overall dissatisfied.
Absolutely.
That might have something to do with
That's a
poor
huge-
turnout at an election. Or
Sure. Yeah.
the number of people who vote.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There could be a number of reasons. But the city council at the time was not alone. This is kind of what they were saying, kind of nationwide, which I think is interesting. But
There was only one of us that was here for
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Point out the first year, like, we didn't even meet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Never even met in person for a full year. And I mean, I certainly heard feedback, like nobody knew when the meetings were, or they were
Right.
being held in secret.
Yeah.
We did hear a lot of
Yeah.
that feedback at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, it was tough.
Interested to see
Yeah.
any of that's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were meeting on Zoom, which
We are gonna get beat up.
yeah, I mean,
We ask people what they think of Rich Parish individually. Specifically, we hone in on that, please.
there you go.
I'm responsible for it going down. I also want responsibility if it goes up.
There you go.
Official.
There you go. Yeah, and I don't mean to skip over anything definitely within the survey results, but we can always next time around dig deeper, or if this group is interested, facilitate like focus groups and really dig into what that means.
So it's interesting that there was.
It is.
the lowest one.
Yeah, and a lot of that,
Perspective on that in terms of 12%.
right?
Correct.
But I think when, as we start to work on the next one, this is really when council, we get to kind of dig in
Yeah.
and ask, like, we want to know more.
Right.
Like, why did that rate that way? And
Yeah.
how can we get that additional information?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And each year, yeah, we do have those. Yeah, we have those focus areas. So like we could dig in more to that and like ask more specific questions. So if that's of interest to the council.
And that map helps in regards to who took it. There's big gaps
Yeah.
that nobody has a dot. So I feel like, again, we can talk about that more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I showed Andrew, I was very proud of my little Kaylee.
Yeah, it's
Street.
so
Had like
Yeah.
30 dots right on
There
my
you go.
section.
There you go.
Papers.
But as we look at this, I mean, I just want to point out when we got the survey results and you look at the actions that the city has taken, we've taken in terms of for those that scored lower, direct, deliberate action. So
Yeah.
we do take this very seriously and helps guide what we do moving forward.
Yeah.
As I'm looking at these, I'm like, man, we need to be promoting like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
because just what's happened in the last few years is in direct response to that, and
Yeah.
they were already pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We received this award that's downstairs. I can't remember what it was, but it's very heavy. I was thinking about bringing it up, but
Yeah.
yeah, we
ETC
could.
presented us with an award for how good the results were as compared to the country, like
We're in the top
multiple communities. It was a
5%.
we should remember this, but
I know.
sitting
It
downstairs.
was 2021.
heavy.
Yeah.
It's a very nice box.
They also did ETC do junction and or power?
I want to say no, but I will check. Get back.
They were scared.
Yeah.
They knew we'd beat them.
I could be wrong. I don't think so. But there are a lot of firms that provide the services. A lot of more are going to like SMS text as compared to the traditional mail survey as well. So, we thought this was the best appropriate way and we got great responses. So I think we're very happy with that, but I will ask that question and get back. So there's a series of GIS maps throughout the survey results and throughout the presentation. This just kind of shows how everyone, how specific areas of the city scored on specific questions. So rating the overall quality of life in Fruita, again, a ton of blue on this map. Our consultant at the time said this might be the most blue on this map he's ever seen, which is great. But overall, people all throughout the city of Fruita feel like the overall quality of life is excellent.
I think it's interesting that the good is our downtown. Like
I
the
think it's
perception there, that surprised me. That was where the lesser scores were from.
Yeah. And we may have a slight explanation for that here in one of the next slides. Overall quality of services provided by the city. Again, are people getting the same services? Are they getting the services equitably throughout? Again, a lot of blue, excellent or good throughout this, and none that had a majority of below average or poor. Overall value for taxes received, a lot of blue again on this. Overall feeling of safety, Kingsview was very safe.
Also, services are the best.
Exactly. And the rest of Fruita feels that we are very safe as well, which is great. So speaking of downtown, again, the top two priorities were overall quality of city streets and traffic flow and congestion management. So you see downtown is the only one that rated that as average, but they also rated it as one of the most important. So when you're saying it's interesting that downtown was the only one that stands out, maybe they were tying that to kind of the downtown infrastructure and the need to improve that, which we know. Yeah.
The oldest.
Yeah. It's the oldest part of Fruita, the original plot in Fruita as well. And we're doing a lot to help with the sidewalks, Reed Park renovation, a lot of the downtown development along Aspen Street. So definitely heard loud and clear if we've made some changes as a direct result of that. Traffic flow and congestion management. Again, still a lot of blue, but areas to improve. You'll see there is some downtown right there, Cherry Street, and then north, and then the business park. Opportunities for improvement there, but overall, people are very satisfied with the traffic flow throughout Fruita. And again, the representation you receive from City Council, the exact same as the previous map. A lot of people satisfied.
All the whiny people live.
It just scored neutral.
That is
So,
recorded.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I stand
Yeah.
by it.
And a neutral is a passing grade. It's just not an exceeds, but that's okay. Yeah, yeah. Passing is great. So there are a lot of these maps in the report, and there's a lot of these maps in the presentation. Effectiveness of city communication throughout all of Fruita, everyone is very satisfied with that. But again, we can always focus on improvement.
It's just strange, like over here, rates is very satisfied, but yet when you look at the numbers, it becomes a higher priority.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All the numbers are good.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to pull out kind of what's important. And we do ask about like, if we were to focus on specific areas, what would we do? And those kind of rose to the top of the list. But yeah, like you said, overall numbers are good. And, you know, when things are so good, people do have to pick things to latch onto and areas to improve, which we're definitely encouraged. So communications and the other three.
Trying to go from good to great
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
or satisfied to very satisfied.
Yeah. Also included in the report is long and short-term trend analysis. So just some notable increases and decreases kind of throughout the results, 2021 through 2017. So the last two community surveys, overall image of the downtown area improved, overall appearance of city, ease of pedestrian travel. We did add the Kokopelli section of the Colorado Riverfront Trail in between these two surveys. So that was a very good addition for walkability and also bicycle traffic as well. Snow removal, customer service increased. Overall decreases, city efforts keep you informed, quality of police services. Visibility of police in neighborhood is an interesting one because again, it's one of those services where if you don't interact with the police department, you might not know how to answer on these responses. And if you're looking outside your window for a police cruiser, you could blink and you could miss it because they patrol, but you know, it's only at very specific times. So as an effort to help with that, you know, our police officers have been doing more proactive contacts, and you've seen that in the numbers. They've also been trying to, you know, get out more to local businesses, introduce themselves, you know, serve as a resource for the businesses and the public as a whole. So trying to be more proactive instead of reactive in their approach.
The city special events and festivals decreasing, that's not really fair in 21.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
Not really being allowed to have anything.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Yeah, we canceled, I believe, all of our special events in 2021 or 2020. And we did do this in early 2021. So COVID was still definitely very much a thing. And then we also canceled a ton of our recreation center was closed for 2 months, 1 month, 2 months, somewhere around there. And then you had to work out, you had to spray your equipment, you had to work out with masks, hand sanitize after everything. So it's just a different experience, right?
Like register to
go
to the rec center, and there was a lot going on. Everybody was mad about
time slots.
everything.
Again, we were one of the first ones to open kind of under that method, but all of that direction was from state who was receiving it, or from the county who was receiving it from the state. Benchmarks. Again, we use the survey results to compare ourselves to all cities across the United States, but also all cities less than 30,000 in population. Why the 30,000 population? As you can imagine, it's a lot easier to manage a city with a smaller population that is a bigger population. Bigger cities have different challenges that we also have, but maybe not to the extent that they have. So we like to use that comparison because on average, the populations under 30,000 score higher than some of the other larger cities as a whole. So we like to compare from both just to get a benchmark. On these bar graphs, the dark blue is Fruita, the pink is the United States, and then the yellow is the under 30K. So again, in most of the service areas that we provide, garbage collection, sewer services, city parks, police services, we score above the United States average and also most of the time above the cities under 30,000 in population. Overall satisfaction.
If you look, there's a lot of we're getting beat on a lot of those.
That we were less than the
the 30K.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, we did score. Comparing to the U.S., we did score over. But yeah, garbage collection over the 30,000, sewer service over, Slight changes, 79 to 81% on city parks, police services slightly under, quality of services you provide slightly over. So it's very, very close. And we also always have that 4% margin of error in there as well.
I would say some of those that you're pointing out were also noted in some of the efforts that we've been working on. So one of the reasons the police department focused on more outreach and education was because of this. One of the, if I'm trying to remember right, the recycling, that was a reason for looking at single stream. I think that was, having the small bins that you had to separate on your own was something that now we've been able to change, fortunately. Quality of recreation programs. After this, when we did our Parks, Health, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Master Plan, we identified, we did further feedback into the community and found out that, we definitely had some gaps in certain age groups that we wanted to create and types of recreation. So there was the tradition, we were doing really well with traditional recreation programs, but not maybe non-traditional. So if you don't play, football, soccer, volleyball, basketball, but you have other interests. And we worked on it for a while, but we've really seen in more the recent years of adding quite a few programs, and the Fruita Youth Action Council doing more with that middle school through high school. So that was something that we took note of. And of course, communication, we've talked about that as well. So I might be missing some there, but that was some of those efforts that we, started really working on related to these types of results compared to the smaller.
To comparing back to previous surveys, when we get the next one, are we going to have pretty good ways of looking back at how we did, like this score as opposed? It'll be pretty. You'll have that kind of pretty good way that we
and if I can
contrast pretty easily.
and if I can go back, so we have the long-term or short-term trends, 2021 to 2017, and 2021 to 2009. So, but that would be 2025 to 2009. So we can compare. But yeah, you're right. There are, especially when you go down the list, we do fall below the under 30K average, but still above the U.S. average in some. So that was a
30,000 is still twice our population.
That's
right. Yeah.
That's a pretty big, a pretty big jump. I know it's a range, but
you're right.
Yeah. And the difference in service delivery can vary quite a bit just based upon the community. We were in Montrose today, and, population 20,000, $100 million budget compared to our $34 million budget. So we heard about all these programs and things that they offer as well. And, they have the funding to be able to do a lot of those things. So it's always something to take into consideration for sure. Again, this is just comparing some of the responses to the U.S. average and the under 30K average. Overall feeling of safety, we are tied with the under 30K, but 10% above the U.S. average. Overall quality of service provided, well above the U.S. average, and also above the under 30K. Same for the overall image of the city. Same for the appearance of the city and the overall value for services from the taxes that you receive. Public safety, again, efforts to prevent crime, visibility, police, and neighborhood. We touched upon those previously, and Mike and I both talked about the proactive policing and the outreach that they've been working on. So we hope to see some changes in this in the future. So city communication has been interesting, and Ciara will definitely go into much more detail than I will on all of the communication efforts that we've expanded since 2021. But we saw a lot of changes, and we continue to see a lot of changes from the public on how we can improve city communication, and also where people like to receive their news and where they don't like to receive their news. So there's a ton of information on that as well. Public Works, Parks and Rec. I don't mean to skip over any slides, but I may have not shared the condensed version, but let me just go through these really quickly. Again, services that should receive the most emphasis over the next 2 years. We already talked about those 4 goals. So we talked about, how people feel about the specific services, but then we specifically asked them, what do you want us to focus on? So our consultant did a kind of emphasis importance kind of matrix that you probably saw throughout the report. So they gauged based upon how people responded to the importance and based upon how they feel those 4 priorities to be. Here's that kind of same thing, what's most important, but also what's the satisfaction. They use that to kind of prioritize their priorities to deliver to the council. This is the same thing, just in a matrix, importance, the rating, and then the satisfaction rating as well. So communication, this was very interesting. And now that we've expanded our efforts considerably, I think we'll be very interested to see what we get next year. The city is the most preferred source of information for residents. Overall, people like to get their information from the City of Fruita's website, which is new. In the past, it was always the quarterly city link, which is great. We love publishing our city link, but we also publish it only quarterly. So if it was up to us, we'd prefer, everyone read the weekly update, or they even read some of the council materials, just so they get communication more often, but also use our social media channels as well. Everything with the red arrow are items that are received above the US averages for ratings. And some of these without, there just isn't a comparison. Not a lot of other communities do the quarterly city link. Other communities may not have the weekly information update. So we can compare ourselves to the US average kind of with that in mind. Yeah, this was one of the questions I was very interested in. So communication outlets that residents are aware or use. City of Fruita webpage was #1, I think, for the first time ever. Then it goes down to Facebook, Daily Sentinel, television, CityLink, print by mail. And we have a few other options as well. We threw some other social media stuff on the bottom, just to, again, this is what are you aware of? We then ask, how do you prefer information? So just to see, again, the difference between the two, because even though you're aware of something like TikTok or Snapchat, you may not want your information there. And I personally think that's a good thing. And that's reiterated in the slide of when we ask, how do people like to learn about activities and services? Again, Fruita webpage, and webpage being the website being #1, the Fruita City link being the #2. And Facebook actually tied for #2, the City of Fruita's Facebook. So very excited to see how these have improved, because our communication efforts have improved significantly since this last survey. Additional findings, this was a few of the questions that the council at the time was interested in specifically. So we asked about, how do people feel about the level of code enforcement? There's 3 options: about right, too strict, or too lax. So overall traffic enforcement, people, 80% of respondents felt that it was about right. Animal control regulations, 72%. For all of these, several respondents did think we were maybe too relaxed in our code enforcement efforts, so that's definitely worthy of note. Junk in commercial areas, 50-50 split, between about right and too lax. And our worst rated as far as code enforcement was junk in residential yards. So that's an interesting one. Again, code enforcement is one of those services. If you don't interact with it, you may not have the experience. But if you have a neighbor that maybe they do have a lot of things that they keep kind of around, then you would respond negatively to that residential yards question, or even the weed control question, et cetera. Council at the time was also interested in in asking what people use Snook's Bottom for, and a lot of it was active kind of recreation, walking, hiking, walking your dog, nature viewing, and then we had some of the passive recreation being the biggest use. And then we had some of the active running, biking being at the bottom. Council was also interested in learning more about shopping habits and how people prefer to get goods and services. So products, services, and events and other amenities residents wish were available in Fruita. I don't know if you've heard this, but a larger grocery store is #1.
Nuh-uh.
This is news right now. Which, yes. More selection of restaurants, live music, more better parking, always things that we can work on. The ones that people do feel that services that are mostly met, healthcare, medical service options. We have a great hospital in Family Health West now with the addition of the urgent care And after hours has been great. And a larger selection of professional services was one that people didn't respond as much. That's like things like hair salon, stuff like that. Type of products that residents, respondents regularly shop for online. This was another question that council wanted to add. Clothing being number one, 51%, food being 20%, and other services being 18. With the pandemic too, I think shopping habits certainly changed. And during the pandemic, when stores were closed or they were limited in their function, a lot of people opted to shop online, and that's kind of just was the reality. So when we asked what people shop for online, these were their top choices. We then asked how much of your household shopping is done online. And I think for our brick and mortar businesses, this was probably a little more encouraging. Less than 25% of households shopping for over half of the respondents was done online. Let me rephrase that. That was confusing. Most of our respondents indicated that less than 25% of their shopping was done online, with our next biggest block being 26 to 49% of their shopping. If that was 100% or even 90% just online, then we'd definitely be concerned about that. And then finally, one of the last questions that we asked at the time, it comes up every once in a while. We asked the question, should City Council add a question about permitting the retail sale of cannabis in Fruita on the April 2022 ballot? I believe at the time Junction had either just passed their sales tax and their licensing for recreational marijuana. So at the time, our council was like, is that something we should revisit? Instead of just putting on the ballot, I think they did the right thing and at least asked the question, should we even put it on the ballot? What's your interest in that? Out of those respondents, and this excludes people that didn't answer, 55% said no, it should not be on the ballot, and 45% said it should. But interesting, out of that 45%, 10% shared that they would not vote for it if it was on the ballot. So that kind of chips away at that more, but not necessarily conclusive, but 55% is overall still a majority. But when you get that margin of error, it gets closer to the 51, 50%.
Weren't we the first that actually had it on our ballot when it was?
It was one of the
legalized in
first.
Colorado, we did.
Yeah, I think it was, medical was 2012 and recreational, I think 2013 or 14. And, well, probably 14, sorry, not an odd year, but, and it failed at that point in time. When we were preparing for this, same with Shannon, I can't remember if they had already passed, but it was going on the ballot for sure at this point in time in Grand Junction. And the council was it was coming up quite a bit. Honestly, the retailers that were contacting council members or staff on a regular basis were mainly from out of state, but at the time, there was a lot, it was coming up a lot. And so the council thought we'd put a question, and we didn't want to, we wanted to ask a question that we could deliver on. So should we put it on the ballot or not versus should we do it or not? Because we'd want to put it on the ballot and not just make a decision. So on that, but honestly, it's at least from the staff standpoint, we were getting a lot of questions leading up to the survey. It's been quiet since on that.
I believe the sales tax passed, but the actual sale did not. So we have a sales
Right.
tax, but nobody's permitted to actually sell
Correct.
it. Which is,
Want to tax it, we just don't want it.
so to conclude, again, as many of you have noted, and as the survey results kind of show, that satisfaction among residents is very high in Fruita and is much higher than other communities in the U.S. average in many areas as a whole. We always have areas we can improve upon, and these are those big projects, those big expensive projects like the 19 Road, Maple Street Bridge, Pine Street Bridge, et cetera, that will help with our traffic and our quality of city streets for several years. But again, these are the 4 top priorities that was shared from the consultant and to help council and staff with decision-making into the future. That is all of it. I did want to briefly share, if you're interested, let me X out of this. They didn't include the demographic information as part of it. So I just wanted to briefly share that. Again, the full report is online. It's 146 pages. So we try to summarize that for you, but if you're ever interested, you can actually go through. You can also see past reports as well. But demographics, we get this question a lot. So we ask people, how many years have you lived in Fruita? The vast majority of our respondents have lived here less than 5 years. But again, it's all pretty close. 31% of respondents, 5 to 10 years was 22%, 11 to 20 years was 26%, and 21 years or 21% was that they've lived here for 20 plus years.
Is that a question that's been on?
Yeah, yeah.
Did we
Yeah.
see a growth or a drop in any of?
Let me get back to you. Let me get back to you on that one. Yeah, yeah, definitely will. We can do some super quick analysis and we'll send a response to council, but we'll look at that. What is your age? Again, overall, very good representation. Our largest one was 65 plus years old, followed by 55 to 64, 45 to 54 being 20%, then 19% for under 35 years, and 35 to 44 being 18%. So really balanced, I would think, kind of between the different age groups. I mean, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, that's pretty close. We could also compare that to what our census information shared, if interested as well, just to kind of see. We also asked about household income, and let me zoom out here so you can kind of see the full slide. This is straight from the report. So majority of our respondents declare that their income was 30 to 59 or 60,000, followed by 28%, which is 60 to 100,000. And then we had under 30,000 at 17% of respondents, and more than 100,000 at 22%. Gender, it doesn't get much more balanced than this. 51, 49, 49% being male respondents, 51 being percent female, and less than 1% described not to, or shared that they provide or preferred not to describe, or they were non-binary. Race, ethnicity, 90% were white or Caucasian, with 13% being Hispanic. The overlap being they may have selected multiple ethnicities. Talking about home affordability, we did ask about whether or not you own or rent your home. Just because coming off the heels of the comprehensive plan, the land use code, we heard a lot about housing affordability and how there are certain changes that we can make to help make home ownership more possible. But overall, 80% did share that they own, with 18% renting. That'll be interesting to see that number. We do have more rentals. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was only one response per house. Correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Are you registered to vote? 97% said yes, 3% said no. Kind of for the sample, I will say that we did use our utility billing list for the distribution. So every household in Fruita got it, which I think was 5,200, around 5,200 at the time. Next time we could use a registered voter list. Not everyone over the age of 18 can register to vote, however, so you could leave people out of that due to various reasons, citizenship, history of crime, et cetera. But we can always explore kind of what's the best way, but we've always used utility billing because every household gets it. Yeah. 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 Do you have access to high-speed internet? And we didn't share what we thought high-speed internet was. 92%. Yeah, 92% said yes, 8% said no. And then employment status, most of the respondents were employed full-time, with 28% being retired. And then we had a few other student, employed part-time, and then homemaker. Yeah, so a lot of information. I have my 2 notes to go back, and we'll get that information to the council, but I'll stop there and pause if you have any questions. I'm sorry for slightly going over my 10 minutes.
We kind of did that to you.
I think it was 12.
That was us.
Keep on believing.
Yeah,
All right.
it's my story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any
Sure.
additional questions before you finally get a chance to sit down?
Thank you, Shannon.
Actually, I did.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Of course. Oh, no, no.
But I did
Yeah.
one thing on there I kind of noticed as a reoccurring theme, and it might have been another pandemic issue, but it seemed like the police got a little beat up on that
Yeah.
all the way through it. And I was kind of surprised by that because I've always been very happy with our police force.
Yeah.
When this initially came out, did you guys do a little dig? Did you have a conversation and kind of figure out, because I mean, you talked about that they've made strides towards
Yeah.
education and things, but what were the consensus thought on what was going on at the time?
Yeah, some of it was, well, there was a lot of thought related to kind of unknown of what was going on. And then across the country, there were there were building sentiments of negativity with police departments. We also, I don't know if it played in, but we had a couple, like minor incidents that had occurred during the time that did not, they did not bode well for perception. And so we were working through those. And then, but a big part, based on some of the other questions and some of as we looked in, really came down to engaging with people more, which is why I'm really, really proud of, you've heard it multiple times when we say those numbers are up, but they're up because of self-initiated activities. And that's been a huge stride. So we struggled with some of the additional engagements. We have increased additional engagement, but we struggled a little bit because of not being fully staffed. And the whole point was we were fully staffed and we were in this position that could really dedicate more engagement opportunity. So not being fully staffed for a long period of time, we still got more engagement. But what we did really well was the self-initiated, which self-initiated isn't always about finding somebody doing something wrong. It's actually, it's doing, well checks and doing business checks and just engaging. So it is a form of engagement. And that's gone up significantly. And so one part of it's how we record it. So it's obviously going to show more, but they have been prioritizing those efforts. So we're hopeful that that'll help, because we got I wouldn't say we did to the level of focus groups, but we had quite a few conversations throughout the community during that time, and our police commission looked into it. Our police were concerned. We were concerned just seeing those results, because you're right, they're not where we would like to see them. And
The biggest surprise was in the comparative.
yeah,
Because I expected, like, I kind of got, like, I'm like, okay, cops got beat up a little bit, but when we did the 30 and under, and we were looking pretty tough.
yeah. And we would get a lot of good feedback for like our school resource officers who were engaging with people. And then we would get just anecdotal feedback in the community that, like, I wish they would wave more, or I wish I don't have a lot of engagement. And so the more I talk about it, the more I remember some of this stuff, but there were like a lot of even internal trainings of just how the perception is when you're out and about. Now, that one's always a challenge, because they can be listening to like where a call that's coming in somewhere when they're driving. They can, there's a lot going on. They could be pulled over and they're, doing a report and doing things where they might not notice, just as others that aren't working from an office in your vehicle per se. But those were some of the things. I mean, I know those aren't like heavy concrete type things, but that's what I remember as we went through that process. But
neither
right.
good or bad either way, but engagement styles from like when Judy, but like people were what they maybe were used to, and versus, and again, that's not saying one's better than the other, but just when new leadership comes into play, then styles. And so that may be just a different, played into that too.
I think we're gonna see big.
Yeah, I think I'd be
Yeah,
very
they
surprised to
really-
see them down low as they were, because they've been doing a great job.
And Council Williams, you're exactly correct. Like Chief, Lieutenant Peck, they'd be the first one to tell you that this community is so supportive of police,
Yeah.
because that's not everywhere. And I think they'll even mention it during the police week. So that's something we definitely don't take for granted. But again, looking at the survey results in a vacuum and kind of considering national sentiment and everything that was going on, it was difficult for sure. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Shannon.
Of course, yeah. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
It is actually straight up at 9 o'clock. We're going to do a 5-minute recess. We're going to keep that pretty strict. So it's 9 o'clock. We'll be back at 9:05. Thank you.
Yeah.
That I just found out.
Yeah, I got her number and then I told her I would, we have a way to like we have a step. But it sounded because she has a trailer there and she said, anything? And they were like, it's too narrow to put a trailer there. But we also have like the strips, which I actually prefer those. The trailer's nice while it's there because it slows people down just while it's there. But the strips tell you what the real, because you're not, the trailer's there, you slow down.
Isn't the strip
You know what I
like
mean?
timed?
Yeah.
Like, it'll show them how fast. they're
Yeah,
going.
like I just crossed some on the frontage road, like. And it's, you don't change your habit as much with the strips as you might with.
But you
the-
get more better.
So you get better
information.
Yeah, you get better.
And that's what.
And for whip, no big deal, so I was gonna talk with Louise.
Okay, I figured you would. I was just curious about how that process.
I was a little confused by this note. It says, please distribute tonight to city council members. This would be my check.
So that's the Enoch Link check, buddy. You're supposed to still do that.
Platypus.
That note was for one of us.
I know, but I'm looking at it going, that was a check, but am I supposed to go? I was just like, what is second? Sorry, that's your. Please don't distribute that. Yours just actually at the top. Shoot, but that's why I opened it up in the meeting. I was like,
Kimberly said she
Well, I
forgot her
got-
presentation.
So Amy's.
Where's the summary?
Was thorough.
Thanks for these little mints, by the way.
You what?
She has little mints, little mini mints. Thank you.
Dude.
And then that one.
So about sharing, no. I'm kidding, yeah. I don't believe in a scarcity mindset. You have all you want.
Like literally our parents have gone.
So-
Hey, we. if only we
Okay.
had a map.
Yeah, we used to get cars all down. We were over there, I'm like, there are no cars, and then she's like, oh.
That one is. Yeah.
Look at them Airbnbs.
Yeah. All of it.
I don't know where he ever got that. I didn't change it. I just told Deb, this is the order. Because I thought that would be so fast. And I thought, it touches on what you two are talking.
Like there's no way to do that.
Well, and yeah, she's right, her neighbors.
Yeah.
I don't know, CR is gonna talk now.
See, the key to
Maybe even more
communication,
thorough.
is how to use the least amount of word to get all the
You sent
messages.
this to me the other day, is that correct?
Part of it.
Part-
Second
oh,
part, you've heard it.
So I can't be excused early?
No.
I
Doggone.
So like I
have
said,
to listen to it again.
communication, fewest number of words, maximum impact.
Exactly.
All right, I think we've got everybody back.
Are we back?
Missing anybody? Mm,
That's pretty wild tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
All
crowd.
right, well, it's 9:04.
Our forced crowd back there.
This is a thorough presentation.
All right, so next presentation, overview of the Communication Engagement Program and Tourism Marketing Program from our Communication Engagement Manager.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, so Ciara Amen, Communications and Engagement Manager here at the City of Fruita. And tonight I'll go over our Communications and Engagement Program and then our Tourism Marketing Program as well. So if I can, let's see. Starting off with communications and engagement. It was a great segue that Shannon shared about the community survey. You saw that it was a priority for the community to focus on communications more for the city of Fruita. And that was back in 2021. Since then, I've been onboarded by the city of Fruita. So I am oversee our communications and engagement program. And since 2020, the last 2 years, we've really worked on expanding our communications efforts and then also centralizing our communications. And so since then, in the last year, we also hired on Ammon Pierce. He's our communications and marketing coordinator, and he oversees the marketing for our Parks and Recreation department. And then also he does our social media for our tourism efforts. So we had an opening in our Parks and Recreation department in that marketing position. And we took this opportunity to bring that person under myself. So I oversee Ammon, and then it's great working together, having a team, bouncing ideas back and forth, but then also just having that backup communications piece there. And we also, on the tourism side of things, saw an effort to bring our social media in-house. So it used to be all of our tourism marketings are mostly contracted out, which I'll go over later, but we saw an opportunity to bring that piece of the puzzle in-house and have someone in the community running those social media channels to really understand what's going in the community and have that resonate with our residents and visitors. So, why is it not clicking? Okay, so our communications goal, telling the city of Fruita's story to strengthen the relationship between the city and residents while also keeping them informed. And so here's just some of the strategies we use to get to that goal. And I apologize for this, the screen's not big. I think it's because I have a different computer than everyone else. But so it's a little small, but some of the strategies we use is showing the faces behind the work, really showing off our employees here at the city and all the work that they do, creating visuals, videos, photos. We just came out with the 4th State of the City video that was premiered back, a month ago now at Rocky Mountain PBS. Answering FAQs, sharing fun things about Fruita, educating the community. We just got done, it's in the process now, but creating a video explaining growth in Fruita so we can start educating a little bit around that topic. We focus a lot on internal communications as well. So, our employees are our biggest assets, and they're, the ones on the street interacting with residents. So we want to make sure that they're informed on what's going on. Hosting a lot of in-person events. Second year hosting the Fruita Academy. We host a lot of city manager engagement events every month. Maintaining our brand so people understand that when they see the Fruita logo, they understand that it is the city of Fruita and that they can trust us. Emergency alerts, and then of course surveys and interactive activities are just some of the strategies we use. And I like to show this comparison. I think it's fun. The items on the left showing the faces, the fun things, questions, education are still all important, but it really helps build those relationships. So then when we need to share some more important topics, we have the trust and the transparency with the community that they can trust our communications around emergencies, large city projects, and then getting their input in surveys. I handed out a little flyer during the break, but these are a lot of our communication channels, and I'm not going to go down the list because there's a lot of ways we communicate with residents, but we try to reach as many residents as we can through various channels, whether it's digital or traditional media. But I do want to point out one new initiative that we're doing, which is the traffic impacts email notification. And so that we started that a couple months ago, just once a week, get together with engineering and planning and go through any traffic impacts for the next week ahead, and whether that's traffic impacts related to city projects or projects happening through development. So yeah, I think it's been good so far, and our numbers are going up for subscribers.
All right, is
Yeah.
this, how is this distributed? Did you just do some of these for us or do
No, so
the sheet? What is up with this?
yeah, so that's posted at in our civic center in the front office in the by like the admin window. And then I think I might have run out, but I had some up at the front where like people could take them for pamphlets and
I
stuff.
was asking is
Yeah.
if it was possible that we could distribute some of these, like how we do like concert posters or something.
Mm.
I think that these would be amazing all over town for a little bit.
Great. Yeah, we can
We really-
definitely, even that QR code, I've thought about maybe even just having that QR code available in places too. Because yeah, that QR code goes to we have a page dedicated to communications on fruita.org with the same information. So, but a lot of our boards and commissions like that flyer. We have the Livability Commission. They use it to hand out at the farmers market when they go to those events. Fruita Academy gets them. So yeah.
This is a great piece of paper.
Great. Thank you.
I think,
Well, actually, that's not a bad idea.
not a bad
at all.
idea. This should be around as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have them at the
Oh,
farmer's
really?
market, yeah.
Yep.
And the traffic impacts, like, that's such a great idea. I've already heard so much positive feedback about that, like, okay, wow, this is a great, way to stay informed. So thank you for that. That's a great.
That's
Did you want to mention the HOA newsletter that we're gonna?
Oh yeah, completely forgot about that. We've done one so far. We're thinking of doing it on a quarterly basis, but a newsletter specific to HOAs. So we have our HOA contact list, and we thought we would pair it with when the city link comes out. So having, the city link information in there. And then this past one was around irrigation. So when irrigation turned on, we sent out the newsletter to all HOAs with all that information, who to call, what to expect. So yeah, that's a new initiative as well that we're doing. Yeah. And then of course we can't do it without all of our departments and staying true to our core values. So we definitely, it takes everyone to communicate. And that's one of my favorite parts about this job is working with all of our different departments. And I think it's fun, even though Kimberly's the last one in this marathon of of overviews that you all are receiving, but you saw almost every aspect of the city, and now we have to communicate everything to our residents. So yeah, and then just some of the benefits real quick, we do have a lot of, again, different communication channels, and they all have their different purposes, but social media is great for reaching multiple audiences and a wide audience. Our website, I like to say it's the hub of all of our information. The website is something we own, and we can host all of our content on there and then direct people to that source. And like Shannon went over, the website is one of the #1 ways people like to receive information from us. We do work with the media a lot on getting stories out through our local news channels. Face-to-face interactions are still super important in the Fruita community. I like web-based communications because we can track the success around it. And then, of course, mailers, we can assure that it's, reaching all of our residents.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
On the previous survey, the #3 way that people got information was the Daily Sentinel.
Mhm.
I don't see anything here that we have any interaction or impact on what they print because they don't print a whole lot about Fruita.
Yeah.
My reading, I mean, are we doing anything to change that?
Yeah.
Is it important?
Yes, it's definitely important. And we've been trying different strategies with media partners to get more Fruita stories out there. It's something that I work on a lot to build those relationships with reporters and tell them when, different topics are coming up, events, trying to get information to them. And so one thing that we've also started, I don't know, I forgot about a lot of things we've started, but we're calling it the Fruita Recap. And it's basically an overview shorter briefings of stories going on in Fruita that we think the media will want to, that's newsworthy. And so we've had a success with the last two that we've put out there. We've seen more stories being picked up by the Daily Sentinel and the TV stations in town. And so, yeah, it's just short little briefings. And if they want more information, they can reach out and I'll provide them a whole press release, interviews, photos, video, whatever they need to make that story happen.
Dan West with the Daily Sentinel is the reporter that covers the city of Fruita, and we have a great relationship with him. He worked with us prior, and then he did something else at the Sentinel, and he just started back. And so when we started this new recap, it was after Ciara, and we reached out to some of the reporters with the TV stations. Those change on a regular basis, so that one's a little bit more challenging, but we talked with those media outlets and then also the Sentinel, and we asked what would be helpful because they receive our weekly update actually, and there's been times where they used to write stories weekly years ago from the updates, or I would have a call with past reporters almost every Friday. They're definitely a little more focused on Grand Junction and Mesa County, but and the school district, but we got some good feedback on this recap, and we just started it. We've only done a few, or maybe two. So this is very new. There were 2 stories from the first one that we put out. So that worked out really well. And then the second one, we had a conversation recently with the reporter at the Sentinel about both the 169 South Mulberry. So he was interested in doing a story, and we let him know that there'd be a conceptual plan, and we hadn't closed on the property yet, but they would be presenting on the 4th. And so he was going to watch for that and follow up with any questions. And he wanted to do a story on the launch, the riverfront development. And he was ready to do one, and I just said it might be good timing. I suggested it might be good timing if we look at it after we enter the public-private partnership, because there'll be a lot more detail with it. I said, you can obviously happy to answer questions and cover what we've talked about in our meetings. And so he said, oh, great, let me know when that happens. So that's just been in the last less than a month. So of starting that, because we were thinking we're sending either too much information and it's not being looked at, or and so this recap seems to be really good. We met with after the State of the Valley that the mayor and I did, we met with the new or the director of one of the TV stations, and he loved the idea of the recap. And so we're going to see how that goes and trying to just improve.
Just found it interesting in that survey, Daily
Yeah.
Sentinel was number 3.
Mhm.
I know that would be my priority, but so far all I've seen is media, the internet and Facebook. So I just wanted to make sure that we are making some efforts with both the TV and the Daily Sentinel.
Definitely focus. this is a small part of it, but we do have a monthly article in the Nickel that gets published. And that is ran by the Daily Sentinel. And so we do have that connection as well to the newspaper. But and then, that's a good transition into this trainings and partnerships. One of I like, leaning on building those relationships, and then just having them. If you ever need anything, it's great to, again, bounce ideas off of one another. We have a great communications team within the Valley that we get together, and the communications group, it's the Mesa County Communications Officers Association. We meet once a month, and something new we're trying this year too is bringing in the media at the beginning of our meetings, inviting them to come, and then just pitching ideas to them around what they could cover as well. So definitely more contact with our media partners.
All is involved in that.
Yeah, so the one in the middle is a pretty big group. It's open to almost, all communications and marketing professionals, but we do have representation from City of Grand Junction, School District 51, Mesa County, Grand Valley Power, Ute Water. So a lot of good partners to be in touch with around communications.
Does that have like a seated board or anything like that, or how does that operate?
Yeah, we do have a seat. There's an executive board
Okay.
that runs the Communications Association, and I'm actually the secretary on it right now.
Right.
So try to be very involved and, yeah, do what I can with that group and stay
Thank you for
connected.
your efforts with that, because
Yeah, of course.
that is a very crucial piece of this overall picture.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then of course, locally, we have a great communications team as well between City of Fruita, our Fruita Police Department, Lower Valley Fire, and then Family Health West. Yeah, we all stay in touch pretty well. So, and then at a previous city council meeting, I touched on the FEMA trainings that we're prioritizing too. So this is just quick. I'm not going to read. They're a little small. I'm sorry, but these are just some of our numbers through social media in the past 90 days. And I think it's just cool to see how many people you can reach on social media and online. And, you know, when people are interacting with our channels, you know, the reach is how many people are seeing it. And then engagement is how many people are like stopping, liking, commenting, sharing that content. So just with, you know, City of Fruita alone, in the past 90 days, 63,000 reached, 4,000 engagement, Parks and Rec, 50,000. So, you know, people are following along and are interested in what we have to share. So
Are you finding a big difference between organic engagement and paid for ad engagement?
yeah, so through our City of Fruita marketing, we don't really do any paid media. This is all organic
Great.
numbers. We do run a few ads through Parks and Recreation for some of our programming. You know, the Sweetheart Run, we pushed some paid media just to get those registration numbers. But yeah, I feel like
This is organic.
this is just organic. Yep.
Thank you very much for that, because that was my big argument with the tourism, is that we were spending way too much and not getting very much engagement for it. And that right there is.
This is not, yep.
Not at all, but it just was.
And I should have,
Wanted to prove
yeah.
that point, that it was not being utilized.
Yeah, I should have put tourism up
Being an
because
It's great.
our social media, or what's called organic social media, is doing really well with Ammon running it
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
centralized. Yeah,
Engagement, is
Mhm.
that total engagement or unique engagements?
it is total. Yep. Yep. And then every year, yeah, we're just trying to get our followers and up on our accounts as well. So then, of course, when it's always great to have followers following along with that education and showing the behind the scenes, but also in those emergencies or city projects, we know we have those followers that we can reach out to. Again, just by the numbers a little bit more, like I mentioned, 4 State of the City videos. And since, we do one every year, and this is our 4th year doing it. We've had 45 Fruita Academy graduates. And then in 2023, we did 20 in-person engagement events. And then our website traffic, this is again from the past 90 days, but 39,000 users, 143,000 views, so a lot of people are going to fruita.org to get their information. And then that was just the top 10 most viewed pages in the last 90 days. Of course, our homepage, but a lot of our Parks and Recreation information is in that top 10 as well. So, yeah. Yes. All right. That is communications. I'm going to move into tourism marketing. Sorry, Councilor Parrish, you've heard this. But yeah, I want to just touch on tourism marketing. I will say, Shannon, please chime in whenever you feel. So Shannon and I, and then Ammon Pierce, we all work very closely together on tourism. I will say Shannon is the lead. He's been running the tourism efforts for the longest amount of time.
We missed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I was bummed to miss it. Yeah. Heard it was a good meeting though.
It was a good meeting. But yeah, like I said, Ammon runs our organic social media, and he's doing a great job. But of course, first I want to touch on, this is directly from our comprehensive plan. And we really, value this input and think about it anytime we're talking about tourism marketing, and it's community first, tourism second. And it's, yeah, very important that we, follow this when we're talking about our marketing strategies and attracting the right people at the right time. So it's still a balance between our community feeling, making sure the Fruita community stays the Fruita community, but also then having visitors feel welcomed and enjoy their time here in Fruita. All right, so what is tourism marketing? Promoting Fruita to visitors through a responsible and respectful approach. Again, we have a lot of public lands around us, of course, and just making sure that we're promoting Fruita and the surrounding area in a responsible manner. And then this is all funded through lodging tax. So the fund was created back in 1996 with a 3% lodging tax that was approved by the voters, and it is specific to promoting the city through marketing efforts. And then also, again, going back to that community first, tourism second, our tourism marketing, marketing is really thought of that you might be thinking of ads and that paid media and, flyers and visitor guide, but we also invest in a lot of things that, again, provide value to the community as well. So projects that, again, both bring value to the community and then our tourism efforts. And just a few examples is investing in the North Fruita Desert Expansion Plan, the Cocopelli section of the Colorado Riverfront Trail. We do have a special events grant program that we run through our tourism efforts. Maintenance of public lands, the winter concert that we did back in, February, was funded through tourism marketing, and then short-term rental software that our special projects coordinator, Matt Carson, manages. But yeah. Shannon, am I missing anything? All right. And then again, just a few responsibilities, inspiring travel to and within Fruita, enhancing visitor experience, promoting responsible tourism in an area where geology, paleontology, mountain biking, and other outdoor recreation resources are abundant, supporting our unique festivals and tourism-related events. And yep, we'll get into that more. And then continue implementing the adjusted marketing plan based on the Fruita Tourism Advisory Council, which is the campaign is called Play Like a Local. That is the slogan. And last year, the Play Like a Local campaign has been, we've been using that campaign for many years, but in the last year, we did a bit of a refresh with it and gave it a new look. And so, it's kind of a fun design. Jan, do you want to touch on the lodging tax?
Sure. Yeah. So each month, our finance department does provide the city council with a financial report that kind of details how all of our taxes are doing, whether it's city sales tax, county sales tax, use taxes, etc. Lodging tax is also included in there. And as Ciara was mentioning, 3% of our 6% lodging tax is designated for marketing and promotion of the city of Fruita. Year over year, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in our lodging tax. Some growth you can probably chalk up to inflation. We've had inflation of 10, 8, and 5% over the last several years, but we're seeing pretty significant increases in lodging tax as a whole. After COVID, we received $172,000 in lodging tax revenues, which was a 92% increase over the prior year, 181 the year after that, and last year 192,000. So we can continue to see that year over year growth. Prior to that, our highest numbers were right around 130,000. We were pretty stagnant on that. A ton of growth. I think it's attributed to more people are traveling to the area. You can see that in our visitor counts, but also lodging has increased in price, and that could be due to inflation. But again, I think more people are traveling to the area, and more people, are visiting, the Colorado National Monument, and some of our other kind of assets. So we have about 300,000 in reserves in the marketing and promotion fund. That is restricted only for marketing. We are spending out of fund balance this year for the 18 road expansion project, which is carried over from the prior year, and also for to update our visitor guide, which we're in the process of doing. But yeah, those are funds that we'll kind of need to figure out what's the best use of those moving forward. So council, as the ultimate decision maker on the budget, you'll definitely be involved in that. But yeah, this is one of those things where every year I tend to underpredict, which I think is good finance protocol, and then we continue to have the kind of excess fund balance to spend. So we're trying to spend those down in a responsible manner. But yeah, year over year growth, and we're also seeing more split between who pays those lodging taxes. Most of the time, it's just been your standard hotel, motel, campgrounds. Short-term rentals has now become roughly 20 to 25% of all revenue. So super interesting to see.
Thank you. So touching on the Fruita Tourism Advisory Council. So this is part of our boards and commissions, and the council is made up of representatives from the lodging industry, area attractions, retail businesses, our city council liaison, and then anyone that's interested in tourism can apply to be on the board. And then the council advises the city council on the use of lodging tax and funds, and then also reviews the applications for our special events and mini grant program. Yeah, so touching on just a few of our larger expenses around the budget, personnel costs. Part of Amend's salary comes from our tourism marketing, and then also Shannon's. Special event funding, we in 2024 are budgeting $41,000 towards sponsoring special events, advertising, and promotion. So most of our tourism marketing is contracted out, except for our social media through Ammon, and then of course our software subscriptions, the short-term rentals, and then we also have a subscription around video and photo collection. Yeah, so special event funding. This is pretty cool that we get to sponsor and help so many events come to Fruita and then also stay in Fruita. So these are just a few that we have sponsored this year in 2024, the Fruita Fall Festival, the Fruita Fat Tire Festival, and 18 Hours of Fruita, Go To It, Rexy, the Kids Adventure Games. They actually had to cancel this year, but we've been sponsors with them in the past, and they're hoping to come again next year to Fruita, and then the Colorado Riverfront Concert Series. And so any special event can apply for a certain amount of funding, and then the FTAC goes through those applications, and then it comes to City Council. And just a few more. There's a lot of events in Fruita. It's great. And then just touching on the mini grant program. So this is a little different than our special events, but people can apply for any project or initiative that is helping Fruita and our tourism efforts, and they can apply for up to $1,000 per grant. This is a smaller budget per year at $4,000, but a few examples of projects that we've that program has helped in the past is the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce's guidebook that they produce every year, reprinting the NCA maps, which are like tear-off maps that are pretty cool that you can find at trailheads. Rome Fest, which is a festival out at 18 Road, and I think it's in September. The Chamber's new welcome sign, that is super, super cool and unique to Fruita. And then sponsoring the Colorado National Monument Association's 60th year anniversary, which is coming up soon. Some of our marketing strategies, like I mentioned, social media, we do paid media, which is online through, again, Facebook, Instagram, and even, Google, where people search about Fruita and and maybe even like banner ads that you see on different websites. We do have a great partnership with the Colorado Tourism Office and Palisades. We do a lot of marketing efforts through them. They do wide range marketing for Colorado, and it's nice to piggyback off of them sometimes to get and expand our budget that way with them because they have a larger reach. And then we have a great partnership with Palisade. One project that we worked on with them last year was the Gravel Adventure Guide. And so this was a compilation of gravel's becoming a bigger activity in the area, so gravel biking. And so we worked with Palisade, and then we got a grant from the Colorado Tourism Office to produce these gravel guides, which are now available in a lot of local bike shops and then bike shops around Colorado.
Super.
They're super. I should have brought everyone. Dang it. And then, of course, video photo collection. We're trying to get upgraded videos and photos. We got another grant through the Colorado Tourism Office to come to Fruita and Palisade this past weekend. So we had professional videographers and photographers in Fruita on Saturday getting content, which we'll be able to use in all of our marketing efforts. And then, of course, we have our gofruita.com website, and then we do a newsletter as well. And then these are just a few examples of some of our ads that we're running right now, and that new design with the Play Like a Local spinoff, where you can say, play like a local or explore like a local, and really, make it more specific to the audience we're trying to reach. So, and then I've kind of touched on everything here, but just how staff time and contracted work is split between the two.
You guys manage the gofruita.com?
Yes, we do. So yeah, we do everything in-house. I had an intern this past year. She helped a lot for communications, but then also she was a great writer. So she did a lot of blog content for GoFruita. So we have a lot of new content on that side as well. That's all I have for you. So any questions or anything? Tourism, communications?
Tourism social media is so much better.
So
Like,
much.
I have not had to make any corrections. That was my biggest
Oh.
pet peeve, was like literally every post had something that was inaccurate before.
Well, just
Just
for my
super annoying.
men doing the walk around, take pictures.
Yes, and they're
4
beautiful.
days, 5 days leading up was
Yeah.
so Fruita.
Yeah,
Very
he's
much
doing,
Fruita, and that's what we
He's doing a
needed.
an
that.
amazing
We
job.
needed our unique town, not like this
What?
blanket blah.
Oh, the costume.
Oh, do you see
You'll
what I mean?
spend a lot of time in the costume.
yeah,
He was a
Yeah.
trooper this weekend. He was in
what?
costume.
He's doing a
Everybody
great job.
Loved him though. There were so many
Yeah.
comments
Great
on
job.
how great he was with the kids and like with people.
And
Yeah.
his camera
did
work, he
great.
was all over the place with his camera. He was
Mm-hmm.
very respectful. Like I literally had to tell him, like, dude, you can go up on stage and get behind him. He's like, no, I'm like, no, go. Like he did a great job. Just
Good.
whenever I saw him, Eamon's been a great addition.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
On our website, do we have to match any of the ADA governmental regulations on the website?
Yes. So,
That can't work.
yeah, I know.
All of them.
That is all of them. So that is another initiative we're trying to tackle. So Katie, our intern, she helped me a lot with getting our website more ADA compliant. And we did this past year, we have a service that kind of crawls the back end of our website and flags areas that were not in compliance. And then you might have also noticed there's a little feature in the left-hand corner of the website where people can click on that and kind of make the website unique to them and serving their needs, whether that's changing the font, making text bigger, reading things out loud. So, yep, color contrast. So those are two things that we're doing. We also have a guide internally for staff that we're working through right now on training all staff on accessibility, digital accessibility, whether that's the website or PDFs is another big item to tackle as well. So we're working through it. The House bill actually got delayed another year. So we still have time, but we're actively working on making our digital content accessible.
Ciara and Katie were working really hard and doing a lot of training for, I think, was it July 1st this year or the original date? So we made a ton of headway, but it doesn't hurt that we have another year to keep making that headway and not, but yeah, we were really close.
Yep. And we're still prioritizing it and working on it.
That's probably my misunderstanding. I thought that was set state level, not at the Fed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah. All right. The last presentation of the evening, overview of the sewer fund. So with our Public Works Director, Kimberly Bowman.
Must be in bed by now. Hey, I'm gonna see if I can do this. I don't do this very often, so.
Oh, good. 24 slides.
I'm gonna give you a brief summary. I will try to move through this fairly quickly, barring any questions, so see if I can.
Putting the responsibility on us to not ask questions.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Kimberly Bolin, Public Works Director. Thanks for the opportunity to come in and talk about the sewer fund. I think I am one of the last presentations as you guys prepare for your strategic planning session. So we wanted to give you an overview of the sewer fund. The sewer fund is a proprietary fund, also known as an enterprise fund. So we treat it as like a business type fund where we collect revenues that pay for the service that's provided to the citizens. What we are concerned about with the sewer fund is that we're creating a financially stable fund that deals with the revenues and expenditures to manage this type of resource and service to the city. The enterprise fund, we collect sewer fees to provide that service. We currently bill about 5,400 properties. It's about a 3% increase from last year. And then, but going into 2024, we budgeted a 1% increase, which is about equal to about 70 taps or 70 residential building permits. Margaret actually put this together. It's a sewer tap analysis for the last 18 years. So what you can see there is the number of taps. So starting from the left side of that chart, the taps sold per year. Then you go to the next column and it's the single family residential units that were sold and the revenue that's generated by those tap fees or the plant investment fees as we call them. The next column over is the multifamily building permits and the number of units that are attached to each of those building permits, and then total residential units, and then the commercial units that are associated with those developments. So it's interesting to note that when you look at the single family residential units, the revenue that's generated is a lot different than what you see from the multifamily units and the fees that are collected for that. And a lot of that, I'm gonna probably look to Mike on that, is some of those negotiations when we're talking about multifamily units and some of the credits they're giving for some of the tap fees and so forth. But I don't know if Mike has anything else to add on that specific.
Yeah, with multifamily, I should, off the top of my head, I believe it's almost like 60 cents to the dollar. So it's a lesser portion. And then when some of the multifamily, and this is not just with multifamily, but for example, if you buy a house that already has a tap, you don't pay a sewer tap again, right? There's already an existing connection to sewers. So some of the multifamily has gone in where there were other types of multifamily. So there was a certain amount of units. If you take West Aspen, for instance, there was a certain amount of sewer taps related to the previous development. And so that they don't repay for that amount. So there's there's a lot more units now, but then it's a reduced because of multifamily and it's reduced because of the amount that were there. So you're not going to see, you're going to see less typically than a brand new build of multifamily or a brand new build of a single family home.
Just want to cover some of the projects we completed. You've heard us talk about some of these projects because they were very large projects for what we do in Fruita, and we're excited to have them behind us in our rearview mirror. This one is the H2S project. It was a 2.1 million guaranteed maximum price. We got it done for 1.83. We did receive a DOLA grant for 900,000, DOLA Department of Local Affairs. And with that, we installed a biofilter and replaced 17 manholes with fiberglass reinforced manholes. The aeration project, again, we completed that as well. It was a 1.2 million guaranteed maximum price project, came in just under budget. We also received a Department of Local Affairs grant to help offset the costs. And this was the installation of a removable aeration grid. So this is related to capacity of the plant. We have 2 oxidation ditches. We're currently running 1, so we're about half capacity of the plant. At the time that we have to turn on the second ditch, we wouldn't have had a mechanism to maintain and repair the aeration system that was currently in the bottom of the ditch because it wasn't removable. So we've been relying on being able to switch the ditches over to do the repairs. We engaged our engineering services and we developed this removable grid system. So regardless if the ditches are full, we can still remove the grid system, do the repairs, and then place it back into the aeration ditch. Additional 2024 projects for the wastewater reclamation facility includes the VFD replacement project that's been completed. We replaced 27 VFDs throughout the plant. Those are the electronic devices that help regulate the energy for the pumps for the flow of the plant. We have the SCADA project. We are actually doing the kickoff meeting tomorrow with Browns Hill. We brought that forward to council probably a month or so ago that you guys approved that project moving forward. The bearing assemblies, which seems to never go away, is a project started in 23. That was an equipment failure at the plant that resulted in us replacing all 4 of the bearing assemblies within the oxidation ditches. The only thing we're waiting on now is they've rebuilt 2 of them, and we'll take delivery of those as spare units on the shelf for some resiliency. And then the final project will be, we'd like to get going with design of the centrifuge project. The centrifuge helps us with our biosolids, separates out the water from the sludge. We have a small centrifuge at the plant currently. We only have 1. So if that were to go out, then we're going to be forced to get into a transportation of our sludge material, which is going to become very costly and expensive for us to do. So we want to go ahead and get going with design on a secondary centrifuge at the plant, again, for some resiliency purposes and back up the current unit that we have. Probably put a little bit larger one in because this one has to run so much to keep up with what we produce with our biosolids. That way, if we get design done, we'll have some pretty good numbers to budget for the construction project of it in 2025. Just a side note, we heard that in Durango, they are doing their sludge hauling, and it's $500,000 a year for them to get rid of their sludge disposal. So we definitely want to avoid having to do that. Okay, this is where I'm going to have to toggle back and forth, and Sarah might have to help me with this. Do I get out of this to go? Probably. Let's see if I can do this.
Oh, good. Yep.
Now maybe I don't know how to do it. Oh, you guys can see that. Okay. So this is, when we talk about master plans for the different funds and departments that we use. We don't necessarily have a master plan for the sewer fund, but we are using this. We have conducted a needs assessment of our system, primarily on the wastewater treatment side. So this is a needs assessment that was developed from the previous Public Works Director, Ken Haley. It goes back, they did the needs assessment in 2016, and they have listed out all of the projects and upgrades and things that we need to do at the plant. And it's really hard to see, so I apologize for the smallness of this, but if I just scroll down, you'll see a number of projects. And if I scroll to the right, which it doesn't look like it's doing very well, you'll see that a majority of these projects have been completed over the last several years. So we updated the needs assessment in 2021, identified the kind of the higher priority projects to finish out. Some of them are tied to capacity, some of them are tied to regulations. We continue to be under the thumb of the state in terms of them increasing regulations at the plant. We've got phosphorus removal, nutrient removal that's coming our way, and that goalpost, that goal line kind of keeps moving. We thought it was going to happen in 27. Now it looks like it might be 29. But the limits also reduce as well as they kind of keep kicking out. So we will be forced with having to find ways to reduce the phosphorus to meet the regulation as it comes forward. Okay, let me see if I can go back now. Sort of.
I will say sometimes we get the question of, when do we finish our sewer projects? And when it comes to, there's kind of a few components, but there's expansion components related to growth, which we collect fees for. There's the maintenance that is ongoing, and then there's the regulation changes that adjust how the plant operates. And so it really never ends, but and Kimberly and I had talked about, obviously you can't see everything in that spreadsheet, but we wanted kind of like our scorecard, wanted you to know that there is a very specific needs assessment. It's different than a lot of our other where we have master plans because there's not a lot of engagement related to it. It's more making sure it's operating and able to operate from all those different angles into the future. So it's one of those features or one of those services we do that's less about feedback from the community on how, but like meeting regulations and making sure we're operating in a sufficient way. And so, and it's its own fund. So it's this enterprise fund and it's tight. One of the things, we have to emphasize regularly is that one thing we wanted to point out tonight, I'm probably jumping ahead already, but is that as we look at this going into next year's budget, similar to what we did with parks and parks fees, impact fees, transportation impact fees, all the different impact fees where we have tied them to at least some kind of index so that this is not one that we've done that with. And it's, you'll see some modeling where we need to look at that because we've kept a fee a little bit long on, now we've been going up on rates, but we don't want to burden the expenses for these ongoing expenses purely on, residential monthly rates. And the only other form of revenue is the impact fees that go towards they're called an impact fee, but it's what the plant investment fee or the TAP fees is what they get referred to a lot.
Yeah, so the other thing that we'll plan for next year is our sewer permits up for renewal. We keep hearing that CDPHE is behind on issuing permits. I was told earlier that they issued a total of 3 permits for the entire state last year. So it will get extended down the road, but they'll still try to hold us to meeting some of the regulations. So it's something we're going to have to really pay attention to. And
What does that entail? And what are they?
so they'll want to look at a lot of the data that we collect at the plant with regards to just our regulations and the settings and the things that we have to do to treat the sewer, which our staff does a great job of capturing that data on a daily basis. All of our lab work and the flows and the BODs and things. I've not been through a sewer permit renewal, so I'm about to find that out, what that entails. But I've heard that they really rely on a lot of the data. You have to prove that you're meeting these requirements and that you're able to continue to meet those requirements.
Feel pretty confident with the information that you have what you'll need, or?
Yeah, I do. I mean, these guys do amazing work. They're scientists out there and data is key for them on a daily basis. So
What if you don't get your sewer permit renewal? Like,
Yeah, how does
You don't let that happen.
yeah, we don't, not an option.
like they can just shut it off. Like what does that look like?
Well, I find that they're backed up on permits, but
It's not an option not to get the permit, but what I've been told is that you really want to pay attention to the limits they're setting in your permit. And you want to push back on that a little bit because they will try to make it as strict as they can. And yet we need to be able to defend that, hey, we may not be able to meet that limit because of the current equipment and our operations at the plant. So yeah, we'll probably be engaging some engineering services for that as well. So there are people around the state that help local communities work through that. So probably be a budgeted expense we'll have. So from the collection system, then the sewer pipe that's in the ground, we've got a number of projects that we've also put on the calendar for 24. Kingsview Lift Station, a replacement of that, the South Mesa Street collection line replacement, that's tied to the CDOT grant, of which the city, I believe, received 1.7 million in grant funds for that project. That's currently going through some additional redesign. So that's probably a 2025 project. And then we've got Greenway Drive Phase 1. And I'm just going to give you a little more detail about a couple of these. The Kingsview Lift Station, we initially budgeted $260,000 for. It was an in-kind replacement. It's a Smith & Loveless lift station that you purchase, package, they come in, you take the old one out, you put the new one in. We went ahead and went out and got a DOLA grant again for $200,000 to just help with the costs. When we wrote the grant, we wanted to build in bringing 3-phase power to the lift station and also adding a backup generator for resiliency at our lift stations. Adding that backup generator has caused this to have to be submitted as a site application with CDPH&E. So they have to review and approve it because we've added a generator to this location. Additional time, additional costs. We did get some preliminary cost estimates on this. We've not had a chance to visit with our construction manager at risk, which is Hensel Phelps. We think they've budgeted high in a couple of areas, but this has preliminarily come back at $921,000 to put this in. So you can see a big difference. And we've got a long lead time. Once we order it, we're at least 24, 26 weeks out before we actually take delivery of the lift station. So this is going to get pushed into a 2025 project. Hopefully we can find additional funds or we can reduce the scope. If we reduce the scope too much though, if we took out the 3-phase power, which is almost $100,000 to put that to the station. If we take out the generator, that's going to affect the grant revenue that we get. They'll reduce the grant funds as well to match the scope. So disappointing. We're not there yet. We've got some conversations to have, but the Greenway Drive line, sewer line replacement. So again, I apologize for the size of this because it's really hard to see. And I wanted to point out, I don't know if my mouse, my mouse kind of shows it.
I mean, I'll point.
Oh, mouse is up at the top by our little thing.
Yep.
Quick.
All right, I'll let Mike point it out.
Oh,
So we are estimating, oops, sorry, oops. Oops. Oh, going the wrong way. There.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is all that this project is
Wow.
going to do at this point.
Wow.
We anticipated
That's
roughly
short.
$1 million because it involves a bore under the railroad, which is its own
Yes.
issue. We're currently in process for DOLA, for a DOLA grant, which I believe the mayor may accompany us to the hearing for that presentation. That's for 500,000. So we have 500,000 budgeted to match that. The railroad, we've submitted the railroad permit. We've paid an additional 5,000 to expedite the review because DOLA wants to hear that you've got your permits in line. And we may not have the permit okayed by then, but at least they know we're in the process. So, expensive project, but
How long of a section is that? Like, what's the actual?
it's a few hundred feet.
Oh my, God,
Yeah. It's not very much. So,
discouraging.
the railroad wants to ensure that, that we've got a large
Right.
encasing and that we're well below or deep going through there. So, yeah, sewer's expensive. Additional projects with the collection system. We've got 19 road improvements that has a sewer line component. We'd like to do an evaluation of the I-70 lift station wet well. As you guys know, with our H2S issue in the city, we had some significant issues in the I-70 lift station with H2S years ago that got fixed. We just want to make sure that the concrete's holding up well and we aren't going to have to do something to reinforce that. We also need to do a hydraulic study to evaluate the I-70 secondary force main. So that is a growth-related line that we would run from I-70 and run the force main towards the plant as a secondary line. Force mains operate under pressure, and so this would be pushed and pumped to the plant. And then we have a launch property timeframe for Raptor Road to move that lift station. Again, that's going to require a site application to the state as well. And so just the timing of when that needs to occur for that project. We've also got our other lift stations, our smaller lift stations, Adobe Falls. We want to do some rotophase replacement and installation with creating some redundancy there. Also the same with 15.5 road lift station. We want to look at a trailer mounted bypass pump because we've had to bypass pump and we don't see that probably going away. And that's just, again, to have in case we need it for emergencies. And then do some check valve replacement at I-70. The bottom two are less expensive of projects, things that we would like to buy for the sewer fund, but definitely necessary. Just an update on this. So we did apply for congressionally directed spending to help us replace some of our collection lines within the city of Fruita. We have about 7 miles of poor collection lines that we need to get replaced over time. Total project cost that we put, I think we were allowed to ask for up to 2 million. So we doubled that project cost to 4 million with our match, and then hopefully the 2 million that we get from this request. We received word from Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper's office that both of them have recommended our project to move forward in the process. We're still a long ways out to know if we're going to get funding for this. We probably won't find out until towards the end of the year, but fingers crossed, and we're hopeful that they come through for us. This is a map of our collection system. You'll notice that everything in red is considered kind of poor sewer lines. So they range in the score of 0 to 2, I think is what we have. Those are the lines.
Yellow area from his little pictures earlier.
Mm-hmm. So this is this is our downtown area. It's the older part of Fruita. The great news is everything else in green is in really great shape. New construction, it's the newer subdivisions, but our focus is really going to be on that downtown area to replace those lines. It's, we've got different types of materials of lines. We still have Orangeburg, we still have clay pipe. We want to get those replaced with good PVC pipe that's going to withstand for a long time. What we've done, our engineering department helped us put some of these maps together for us. This is the Greenway Drive project. So you've already seen this map, but what you see in the upper right corner, I think that's upper right corner to you guys, the red shaded area is what we deem as the impact area. So if this line were to fail or we had a blockage or something, that's the area that would be impacted by the sewer line. So that includes the hospital, the police department, the fire department, their downtown. So it's a major line, and that's why it's reached the high level of priority for us to get going on making those improvements.
This is obviously why well, there's a lot of projects, and when you're going after congressional district funding, there's a lot of thoughts on it, but this is why we do not have this kind of cash in this enterprise fund. As you can see how short the distances are for the pricing. So this is why we went after congressional district funding for this. This is why we've been emphasizing a lot of DOLA grants towards sewer, just to maximize that enterprise fund, because it's just very expensive business and we want to continue making progress. The South Mesa has been it continues to get bumped, and it's because, which is similar to congressional district funding. It's nice to get these bigger grants that are in the millions. South Mesa, 1.7 million, but because it's CDOT, then you go through a whole new process. So it does end up costing more to take that money, and it does lengthen the process, and it required the redesign. So we have to balance out each time we're doing that, you know, you have to, that we're getting enough money that's doing the cost benefit of if we were not getting the grant versus getting the grant. Now, when we're in the millions, and if we were able to get 4 million, it's going to increase. There's going to be some federal requirements that we wouldn't have otherwise, but it's significant funds. You know, if it's 200,000 or 400,000, it might be increasing the cost by that much or more. So we're always having to evaluate those things, but this is also why we've prioritized sewer projects. While there might not be the most fun of the list that we have, when you see that area with the older lines, we need to get those, you know, we need to stay on getting those. Yeah.
Keep telling everybody sewer is sexy. I said that today. But nobody seems to believe me.
We need a shirt.
You know, to credit Mike and Shannon too, with their leadership, they also allocated the ARPA funds. We dedicated a lot of those funds to sewer, and that's what helped us get 2 of those large projects completed this year. Otherwise, we'd still probably be looking for funds to help get those done. Just to keep going, again, another high priority project will be the South Downtown project. This is from Carolina Avenue to Reed Park and then down to Highway 6 and 50. We are looking at cost estimate. You know, we're in the middle of Reed Park right now, and it would be great if we could, I mean, the parking lot's a disaster. If we could redo the parking lot, but you don't want to do that if you can't replace the bad sewer line underneath it. So, we may or may not be able to get that done, but we are looking at that right now. Then we've got the Mesa Street to Otley Avenue sewer project. Again, you can just see the impact area of what it looks like. And then our force main extension, big red blob, but that's because it's all of the sewer flows towards that lift station and then to the plant. So we currently have the force main. This is a growth related impact. So as we continue to grow, we just need to build our capacity on that.
And just maybe if you're like me, I have to remind myself what force main and some of those things are. But you know, with sewer, you have gravity flow, which is great, but you don't always have gravity. And a lot of getting to our plant, there's a lot of pumping and force mains and to move that sewage to the plant. So.
Okay, so now I'm going to try to toggle through again. So 2 years ago, we found this model. So previously the city had done a rate study, and that rate study was good for approximately 5 years. And it basically said the city should increase the sewer rates every year, 3%. And then after the 5 years, you reevaluate. The problem with those is that the minute you get done with that rate study of getting it completed, before you even do the 5 years, it's out of date because things change so much within the financial model of the sewer fund. So we actually went out and we found this program. It's called Waterworth. It's a continuous rate management program. So we basically load all of our financial data in there with the sewer fund, and we can generate models and do some predictions that, you know, if we raise the rate this amount, what will it do to our sewer fund? How can we accomplish our projects? And I'm going to try to switch over. You guys are really testing my technical capabilities here. So this is the program. So Margaret and I've been working closely on this to update our financials. So they took the audited numbers. We've updated it with the audited numbers. We've created 2 models that we want to show you tonight. And the thing I want to show here is this is a very quick high level summary, unlike Shannon's summary. I couldn't help it, Shannon. If you want more in-depth, this company is fantastic about getting on with us, walking us through this stuff. Their customer service is top notch.
Yeah, and during the budget process, when we're getting into it, we can have them come virtually. They've done one presentation. Some of you have seen, but they're always available. It's nice because it's a continuous service, so we're able to work with them as often as we need, and we are able to keep updating the data because as we get, you have your estimated. And then when you get actuals, we update it with the actuals so that, then we're estimating ahead. And it helps us in really gauging where our funding needs to be able to keep up with the projects that we're doing.
So this particular model is status quo. If we do nothing with our rates, if we do nothing with our plant investment fees, we don't get any more grants, then this model shows us that we kind of fall off the cliff in 2029. We drop below.
Which is that black line that just dives down.
Yeah, our cash position drops below our operating threshold. Now, our operating threshold is based on requirements by the Colorado Water and Power Authority, who gave us the loan for the treatment plant. They require us to have 25% of our operating revenue, or 90 days worth of operating revenue, as well as 50% of our loan debt on hand, so that, you know, in the event something happens, we can still make that payment. So we can't drop below that red dotted line. The black line is our cash position target. So we also want to keep $1 million in there for capital projects. And so, you know, that $2 million mark is really where we want to stay above with our cash position. So you can see that scenario. We do nothing with our rates. If they stay where they are today, it doesn't look really good with the needs of the plant from the needs assessment and the projects we've got coming forward.
So black line is our cash position current? Or
Yeah. Yeah. For the following years, you know, so 24, we're sitting right up there. So we're good. We're above the expenses that we have. But if I change the model and now I show that the capacity expansion, so our plant investment fees that is paid at the time development comes in, increases 3%. And our sewer rate, our monthly rate goes up a 2.5%. You see what that does to the model. Puts us back up above that operating threshold and our cash position target. What I like to do, and they're so much better at doing this than I am, but I'm going to try to do it for you guys. The way this model gets built, so we load in all of our operating expenses for the sewer fund. On top of that, then we look at our current debt service, and that gets added in. Now, our debt service is going to end in 2033, so we'll free up, you know, roughly $1 million, $1.2 million in revenue, but our plant is going to be 8 years older, so we're still going to have those needs.
You go back to, am I messing you up by making you go back to the screen?
You might be.
So that
I'm
last
gonna
one-
get back to that screen.
Okay, but that 3% that you showed, oddly enough, and I know you know this, but right at 2033 was when it hit that spot. Is that on purpose on your end, or?
Can we wait till we get back to that and then we can look at that? So we get current debt service, we look at our capital improvements that we want to do over the years, we look at our capital expansion projects. All of these expenses here dictates what the revenue is needed to meet these needs. So then we start adding in our revenue. We have sale of sewer service, that's commercial growth. We then look at our plant investment fees, which is a combination of plant investment and our monthly sewer rates. You start seeing that revenue coming in. Then we have some other small operating revenue. We've got, we might have some developer contributions, some non-operating revenue, and then we have grants. So we've done pretty well in our grants the last few years, and hopefully we keep doing that going forward.
Kimberly, why does sale of sewer services stay flat? I guess
The-
it's up a little bit.
The sale of service too. So those are the commercial fees, which we just don't grow that much in our commercial development. So they stay pretty flat. Then we add in our operating threshold, which is again, those requirements for the loan. We do our cash position, which adds in the additional $1 million for capital. And then that puts our cash position back in. And you'll see that we start building our cash position up here. And then when we start doing some of these projects, obviously your cash position is going to go down because you're spending that money. And we just get into these peaks and valleys. And what we can do is we can look at the needs assessment projects and we can start to try to plan those out. So it's less of the peak and valleys and maybe more of just, you know, kind of just ride the wave through. It just really depends on the needs of the plant and where we're sitting with those projects. So we don't usually budget for any grants because that, you know, you may not get them. And then you don't want to lose that. So what question did you have?
So at 2033, it looks like the operating, the cash position target
It's
and,
right here,
and then what's the solid line's name? Cash
cash position.
Those two look like that's when they meet.
So this is as far as we ran the model.
Oh,
The end of our,
okay.
the end of our.
That's why it
loan.
drops off there.
Yeah, so it just kind of stops at that point, and we can forecast out 30, I mean, we can build in however many years out we want to on this.
But we realize that at that point, that's when we have a lot of expenses go away, so we should be in a better position.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
all right, cool.
Well, what we do lose is we lose the red line because we have no loan. It's paid off at that point in time. And then we're not making the debt payments per year, which is helpful. Other expenses, you know, continue, but yeah.
There is.
But all of a sudden, we're not making, I mean, it's over $1 million
Yeah,
a
it's
year,
1.2 million.
1.2 a year that we're paying in, you know, in our loan payments. So that's $1.2 million that we have to go towards some of these things. But yes, it's aging and there's still the maintenance and all the things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
In that model.
Scares you, but it's.
Were you here when they presented this? I want to, Matthew, though, I think you were gone actually that night. It scares you. It scared me more until listening and going through every aspect of it with them. What it does show though is that we can't ignore, like, we can't just be like, we're going to keep rates the same. You know, that's it's not sustainable.
Fall on the burden of the current taxpayers. They've paid their investment. It's really new development that should be paying for some of this. And they are. I mean, they are paying a plant investment fee, but it probably needs to keep ratcheting up a little bit.
I understand that there's discount, why there's that discount, but yet is the idea that the overall usage, that multifamily unit actually pays more over, like, per person? I'm curious what the logic is, because it seems like in that single tap, there would be more flow.
But there's less.
There is, and they are paying for that rate. They're only tapping into the sewer once though for that.
They pay the same rate. It's just the tap fee is less because it's concentrated. So you have a single family home and then you're running a line to the next single family home. It's more expensive to add new connections. So yeah, not the same rate for use, different rate for connecting is the way that, yeah.
It really is a great tool. And we stumbled on it and we mentioned it at a DOLA presentation, and then pretty soon they were like recommending it to all their other communities. So
What's nice about it is before we had that tool, we would go off of, you know, paying a group to do a pretty, you know, a substantial amount of money to do a big study, and then working off the study till you redo the study and trying to do some internal updates. This kind of allows us to just continually use the data, like can stay up on everything and add in each year's financials, you know, what those actuals are, and not have to spend so much money on individual studies and then kind of the guesswork in between, but actually have a tool that's helping us in somewhat real time, you know, move forward on that annual budget cycle.
You get royalty fees from.
there are others for us. So
one of the things that doesn't fully show in that, but it will in the actuals, is now that we're starting to see development along 19 Road, that they're paying the tap fee, but they're also paying a recapture fee. So they're paying more than that normal fee because that's coming into money we spent bringing sewer out of that same fund. So it doesn't happen all at once because it's per, you know, residential unit, but as that builds out and you know, we do have those recaptures coming in as well. So, which is helpful. But it's, you know, you spend it ahead and it takes a while to get it back is all.
So I want to leave you with like kind of where we sit financially with the sewer fund. We had a beginning fund balance of this year at 7.5 million. We budget our revenues at 5.3. Our operating expenses, 2.1. We've got our debt service at 1.29 million. We did our capital projects, some of the small capital equipment that we've purchased, and our ending fund balance is 7.7. So we gained, 200,000 in fund balance. However, the fund balance is made up of these restricted funds. So we've got the restricted loan covenants that we have to meet. We've got the equipment replacement, which is the 750. That's what we used for the bearing assemblies when they went out. We've got our vehicle replacement. It seems like a lot of money in vehicle replacement, but one vac truck will be at least that much, if not more. And then future expansion, we started that in 2022, adding money in for future expansion. And so we're up to 611,000 there. The 4.8 million is, even though it says it's assigned, it really is what we have available for operations of the plant as a fund balance. So, we're not broke, but we do need to be really strategic about how we use these funds. Just real quickly on the rates, we've averaged between a 2 and a 3% increase over the last few years. The plant investment fee is currently 7,000. That's been that way since, I believe, 2007. I remember right. I might not have that date right. But when they were doing the evaluation of building the treatment plant, they had a technical memo that they said your plant investment fee should increase annually 3%. And if we had done that, we would be at almost a $10,000 plant investment fee today. So for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And so we might be a little bit behind the curve on that, but I think that's where Mike says we probably need to look at tying it to some sort of an index so that annually it receives an increase based on the index. And then the last thing, one of our goals this year was to establish a FOG program. FOG stands for fats, oils, and grease. We have a lot of it in our system, as do all sewer systems. But what we want to do is implement some regulation, work with our businesses to keep this out of the sewer system, because this damages your infrastructure. It becomes costly to manage and mitigate, becomes harmful to the system. And currently we are chemically dosing because for years we had such an accumulation of fats, oils, and grease at our I-70 lift station that it was creating a mat of grease that had to be pumped out weekly by our staff and then taken to the wastewater treatment plant and offloaded there. We've started chemical dosing. It seems to have a positive effect on it. It breaks up the mat. It doesn't quite let it form into that thick mat that then can't go down the system. But it's expensive and it requires staff time to administer the dosing. So we'd like to get away from that if we can keep it out of the system. And so this is something that will probably come before you at some point to propose a program. We're just not quite there yet with that. That's it. I think I was less time than Shannon. For sure. Any questions? Sorry, that was a lot in a quick amount of time and it's late.
Good. I now want to do that.
Thanks.
There's a Fruita Academy. My wife cannot stop talking about the sewer treatment plant.
Everybody needs a tour of
It is really,
seriously.
like at a dinner party, it's really awkward, but it's,
You gotta get these guys out there. You have to. It's so great. I want to go again.
I will tell you that our wastewater superintendent has announced his retirement.
saw that.
So, and we are also in the process of interviewing for one of our A operator positions. So we are down in staffing, but we had some pretty good candidates this go around, but superintendent one is going to be tough to fill.
So you have to have the tour before you leave.
Yeah, definitely.
Enthusiastic.
Definitely.
Person I've ever heard talk about
Alright.
sewer treatment.
Before we let Kimberly go, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. All right, we're moving forward. Next up, Mike, City Manager's Report.
We have a need to schedule at the June 17th City Council meeting to adjourn into a Housing Authority meeting and then reconvene as a council. So you'll get your first opportunity to be act in the Fruita, or not act actually. We'll just go into an executive session and have our housing attorney, which is Dalton Kelly with Butler Snow. He'll be virtual and we'll discuss, we've had a few proposals for new types of projects. And so we want to walk through the ins and outs of those proposals and really get some advice from the attorney on how to evaluate and move forward when we get such proposals. So it won't be the groups at the meeting or anything like that, just to walk through that. We need to do it on the 17th of June, because waiting till the third Tuesday in July would be a little difficult, but we have a fairly light agenda that night, as it shows now. Today, we took our leadership team down to Montrose. This has been something we've been working on with the city of Montrose to do for a long time. We still need to schedule the council get together that we've had a hard time scheduling with them, but we had a great time taking our leadership team down. We started out the morning comparing kind of organizational charts and some challenges and wins that our communities have. Then this was all pre-planned and scheduled, and then we had a breakout sessions where everybody got to break out with their colleague and their public works director with public works director and utilities director, and then we all came back together for lunch and discussed a few topics that we both had of interest of what we're doing and what they're doing. And then we did a tour of their riverfront development, which is different than a little bit different than what we're doing, but we got to learn quite a bit in the modeling of that. And then we headed back here. So it was a really good peer-to-peer learning session that we did today. And then we are going to host the city of Montrose either in the late summer or the fall. So we're looking at a date where they'll come and we'll do the same. There's a number of things they want to learn from us. And then very successful Mike the Headless Chicken Festival. James, the music was fabulous. Great comments. Staff really worked hard at this festival. There were only maybe 2 or 3 that had ever even been somewhat part of it before. So it was like a completely new group of staff working on the festival. And so overall, things went really well. Some good things that we learned in that, but great feedback from the community. The 5K, we had to stop taking registrations at 400 people because we just had no more bibs and things like that, because just based on past numbers, we didn't order that much. We'll definitely, it's getting up there like sweetheart. So, which was great to see that. And then
how did Junction's race go?
They had to cancel Saturday because they didn't have enough registrations. Blamed us for they had from what I know, a very creative open house for their community center, and they were planning to do a 5K, but yeah, we had a lot of people running here, so that was great. And
I was aware there was a 5 for Luck or something, another 5K out at the fairgrounds.
Oh, okay.
They had 85.
Okay.
Which was disappointing for them.
Yeah.
For CASA, because it was a fundraiser for CASA, but I think the competition, and I think there was one other 5K going on that day. So there were a total of 3.
Wow.
So for you to have 400 here is great.
Yeah. Yeah. We were happy to see that. We had some interesting, we had some learning experiences with the bathrooms. They were super, there was a good line at those for a lot of events. We actually got a ton of good feedback. I know there's negative feedback as well. Mark went and stood there, and there's already signage ordered for helping with when you go in, you have to push a button that the door closes, and you have to make sure it turns red is what it shows you. But that is not natural for everybody, it seems like. So Mark actually took some time to stand there and educate people, but that he couldn't catch everybody. We averaged 4.2 and 4.5 flushes. What was that per?
One flush every
For
4.3.
One flush every 4.2 and 4.5 minutes in each of the stalls, all during the festival. And we did have a blower go out for a short period of time, which they got back on, so it wasn't drying as much for one moment. And then we're working with the manufacturer. There's a lot of adjustments you can do for timing of things. One of the things that will always remain fairly slow is the door closure, but that's because of ADA. You know, if you have that need, it can't automatically shut really fast. And so, anyway, and then the other, thank you, Mayor, for the statement you read at the beginning of the meeting. It did remind me of, I know when Janine and Amy and I and Shannon were at the CML Spring Outreach meeting couple weeks ago. CML has, and we'll probably hear about it at the conference, but they've put out one of the initiatives, or the initiative from the president this year is about civility. And so they have a lot of template items to do, you know, where we could consider if council would like to do a civility proclamation. And most of we realize that a lot of what they have as examples reflects our norms of conduct. And so perhaps a thought could be taking some of the things that aren't there and some of the things that are there in a summary of a proclamation for civility and some of what you read, and then referring to the norms of conduct as well. So that could be something, if you all are interested, that we could discuss at a future date and put in there. But that's all I have for, the last thing, we do need you to email Jennifer and I about your schedule plans for those of you that are going to CML. Like when you plan to leave, if you're driving on your own, because we need to prepare those per diem reports in the check for mileage or mills. So if you could take some time this week to look at your schedule for that, and just send that if you haven't to Jennifer yet, but so we can put all that together. It kicks off on Tuesday at 4 p.m., right? Okay, somewhere around that. We'll have to look, but it's I think the main.
So, but we're scheduled to arrive on that Tuesday, not.
We are scheduled to arrive on Tuesday. We have a meeting Monday night. We're scheduled to arrive on that Tuesday. And just for those of you that are new, we can, if you're taking your own vehicle, then there's a mileage reimbursement for that. And that is completely fine because you may be leaving at a different time or coming back at a different time. If there's some there's also city vehicle that can be used if there's some that want to ride in that vehicle and go down as one group and come back at the same time. But I know some might be coming back on a different day, getting there at a different time. So we just need to know that so we can put together which mills from the time you start and end and cut that check prior to the trip. So
As we confirm, we're all staying at the same hotel.
we are, and it's not in walking distance to the conference. They only had one and it went so fast because I don't think it has nearly the rooms that the others conference or locations have had. So a lot of people are driving in, but we are at the same one. So we could do some carpooling over, you know, for sessions and all the things and dinner and all those. Yeah.
Willing to, I mean, we can put it in email, but I'm willing to carpool. Either share a ride or somebody can hop in my car.
Yeah. Great. And if you want to, if you shoot.
It was a lot of fun. I'm really sad that I have to come back early.
It's an additional stop to plug in, but.
It was just a few minutes and we watched really funny YouTube videos.
Oh.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
With that, council reports and action items. Anybody want to go first?
I will.
All right.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Mike said about the CML dinner that we went to and the civility pledge. It was so interesting because Amy and I got to meet the new city manager for Grand Junction. And yeah, and we were, yes, thank you, intern. And we were chatting with her about how we all interact and get along and all the good things. And she was like, you guys should teach a class, teach a course. And she just couldn't believe what we were saying. And then it was so funny because the civility piece came up and like, oh, that's exactly what we were to her about. But there is a civility pledge that you can do online that Amy and I both did while we were there. So I don't know if we want to send that out to everybody else to take a look at it or whatnot. And I was curious about about the Ash Street comment that came up today. That sounds like something worth taking a look into if everybody else felt like that was.
Yeah, I actually went back and talked to Tessa and told her that I would work with police and engineering on that. I think when I asked her some follow-ups, it sounded like she had requested the trailer that shows, and there's not room for the trailer there. And so we're going to look at there's the other ways where we can do this, possibly do the strips, and there's some other things. So we're definitely I already told her, we got her phone number, talked about working with those departments and getting back to her.
Good, like she mentioned that there's no speed limit signs in that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like that's a pretty minimal thing.
That's easy.
Like that.
Yeah, assuming we can find a location.
Yeah.
And then I was just curious about the alley behind the parking area, the public parking by Hot Tomato, just where things stood there after our last meeting.
Yeah, we would have to get one, if we were going to put a block, there's nothing that requires the two accesses. It's preferred to have more accesses than one. There's nothing we can do to prohibit people from driving in the alley because that is part of it. But it would be, I mean, it's not as simple as it would be to do it right. We'd have to have permission of the owners and then to build, and then we'd have to budget something to like do it where it has the reflective, per like the traffic codes of stopping people from going through there. So that's as much as we found out. So it would kind of depend if that's something, we want to look at as a project or not, moving forward. But police and fire would prefer not.
Yeah, I think it's part of a larger.
Typically, I haven't talked to fire, so I don't want to, but typically, just more access, better. But we also talked to the police department. They did some checks, but during the times they did it, nobody was driving on it. So they're trying on that, but we know people do. It's not, yeah.
Is it worth putting this on a workshop too? Because we do want police, fire, and cost. So we can give you direction after we get all that information.
Yeah, we could. We're getting pretty full on the next two already. So unless we want to schedule
something else to that as well. Or
yeah.
Something else to it. So that's July, August. Holy cow, we're already looking at September.
Well, June's pretty busy, and July is June and July, but August.
Strategic.
Yeah.
Retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
We're now looking at September.
And Matt is kind of, he started working with that, but we stopped short because we didn't want to contact. We're already trying to work with the owners to purchase if we can. But, that was the point of leasing if we could ever get to a price that would, so we didn't want to start asking about doing it if we don't know if we're going to do it yet from that standpoint. But he was going to look at, what those, or we could look at what those prices are if you want to know what that would be, or if that's something we want to at least consider.
But, so the question is, by September, we should know where we're at with those discussions, correct?
Mm-hmm. Easy, yeah.
Not that far. That'd be great, thank you. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, actually, no, sorry, I had one more thing.
Okay.
Are we gonna do a muse tour sometime soon?
Yeah, they wanted to get to a certain point with some finishes inside, and I think it was mid-July that they estimated. So we're gonna have to, well, what we could check on is if I'll make a note to check if that third Tuesday in July prior to the meeting, because that would be something if it works, we could schedule. So,
Aspen Street.
oh yeah, we can check on that one. I'm not quite sure where they're all at inside. That's true. Yeah. Perfect.
Nope, I'm actually.
James. Huh? Amy.
The CML event was really fun. It was really neat we were like the standard that the rest of the municipalities were comparing to, which was funny, but really cool. Like, and we didn't feed into that. Like, it was just kind of the way, which that was fun. That was really neat to like see how we're kind of viewed. And then, yeah, I think that's it. I had to miss the historic preservation meeting yesterday. I had crazy work day. The market is up, guys. Thank goodness. But yeah, so that's all.
Andrea?
I just have one update, which is the museums of Western Colorado. They're going through quite an interesting new era, and I like the new director quite a bit. What I know of her, I have coffee with her next Tuesday. They also got rid of one of the directors of operations, and so there's a consolidation of their staff and a renewed sense of like fundraising. I guess that was something that hadn't happened as much in the past. So there's kind of a neat little like a buzz at the old museum. So I enjoyed my first meeting with them, and I look forward to the next one. And that's my update.
Do you remember off the top of your head when they are supposed to come and present?
Typically we do that because we had her come introduce, or she came and introduced herself, but as far as presenting, we usually do that going into the budget process at some point in time, September, August. Yeah. But we can.
Great, so hopefully they'll
Yeah.
have their feet a little bit underneath.
I
them.
think so. Yeah, I think they're moving fast.
Okay,
New vision and whatnot.
awesome. Anything else?
That's all I got. Thank you.
I have had the opportunity to meet with two. One was a very short Zoom meeting, the community grant. And they basically met to approve the minutes. To say that they would meet again in September. They didn't feel that there was a great need to do anything. I didn't oppose that. I met with the Tourism Advisory Council. Most of its meeting was listening to the report from the agency, the ad agency, I forget what the name, what, Covia? Okay, just their report, which was way more detail and longer than, anyway. And she didn't seem all that professional. I mean, knowledgeable, but anyway.
Not just me. It's not. Rich.
And so some of the comments that came out of it, they have some questions about expanding billboards and the use of billboards coming into the valley to direct people here, see what the opportunities are there. Wanted to know about the billboard that is leased to Family Health West, what the status is there and how that might be better used. There was a couple of comments sort of under the breath of the play like a local branding is a little stale, and that a whole lot of other places have it. So that was going to be a discussion at a future meeting. Looking at the next meeting doing some SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses of the whole marketing effort. They figure they've got $300,000 to spend and they want to know how to spend it the best way. That's basically all.
I think I'm going to beat James to this question. When is their contract up for renewal?
For the billboard?
No.
Oh, for the, yeah, remember?
Yeah. So it's actually, so we initially went with a 2-year contract with the option for 1-year renewals. In the past, the decision has generally been made by the tourism board to go out to bid if they're interested. We had some conversations last year about the renewal, but they haven't discussed that yet this year. But as of right now, we're just operating under the renewals of the contract, so it can be changed at any time given the appropriate notice.
Or like a 90-day out clause or something like that.
And we'd probably, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we'd probably start, sometimes if we were to transition, you'd probably want to do it kind of just the calendar year, just to give people lead time, as well, and to kind of finish out any ongoing efforts.
I'm just starting to hear this a little bit more. And I'm curious if that board is starting to feel that way as well, that it's time to maybe look at.
I'm, that's the very first time I've been and met most of those people, so I can't really give you a status of what that might be. But
Yeah, I would say just from a quick history, staff was completely satisfied with the previous group, but the board wanted to change. And then last time the board acted on, should we go to bid again or not? They said no, but I do think there's been growing, that feeling seems to be growing a bit, but.
It just seems to me like they're not really motivated.
And I mean, yeah.
Outside the box whatsoever. They're just phoning it in.
And I want to make sure we're respectful of the board in terms of that's their decision. I'm just trying to get a feel for kind of where they're at.
The board is too nice. For lack of a better way of putting it, everybody on that board is just very kind and very nice people. And the COVID people are just bulldozers.
And I would say that the, Colvita is acting on the direction of the board from the last planning session that they did. And then, what was the other point? Yeah, it might be too late.
And mindful,
yeah,
that's what the board is for, but yet we have fiduciary duty to make sure that we're getting the most out of the money that the board is using. And I'm not quite sure, like, how do we judge that in terms of value versus dollars that we're getting without overstepping bounds?
Right.
And so I'm open for any suggestions on how we kind of look at that from a higher level.
Yeah, kind of just as part of like annual conversations with the board, we could ask them, their current feelings without, anyone else kind of being a part of that. This is exactly what we did last year. I think it was brought up either in May or maybe in June, because that's really the timeline we would look if we were going to go back out to bid and solicit responses for the services, probably right around then. So we can always ask that, as part of, we're on 1-year renewals, and I think we can do up to 3. So this is our first of the 3 that we could do. So kind of gauge their interest in that and kind of go from there. That's something we do every year, kind of with the billboard. So yeah, the billboard we own off I-70 is on a 2-year term. But last time we did talk it out, we're like, do we want to put out the billboard to use? Do we want to continue with the lease for Family Health West? At the time, the majority kind of on the board said, let's continue with Family Health West, $12,000 for the funds that we can use for tourism. It's one of our largest employers. So it seemed like a good use of those funds, but we can always solicit proposals for that as well. The only other thing that I'd probably mention is, and we mentioned this when we first changed firms, is we're always constantly evaluating, what we can do internal. And as Ciara was bringing up earlier, we brought organic social, so Instagram, and a lot of creative internal as well that maybe we don't touch upon a lot. So when we selected this contractor, we selected the contract, we kind of knew we would always continue to evaluate what our needs are. And I think we're still doing so. But there are some things that we have brought internal, and you never know kind of where that will go. Especially when you have the right people. Ciara and Ammon are doing such a great job, and Ammon is so good at all of the creative that we're getting definitely a lot from that position, which is great for our tourism efforts.
Yeah.
Just coming in new and listening to that, that was the thing that I said, what are you offering us that because our staff has done so much and so well based on what I've seen, it just didn't really, I couldn't see from their presentation that they were really offering the city all that much.
That's totally my exact take on the whole thing, especially for the amount of money that they're getting for what they're doing. It's like, it's laughable if it wasn't, it's horrible. It's really bad.
I'm wondering, oh, go ahead. I'm wondering if you do ask the board that question, if you phrase it under the council has concern with this group.
And maybe that's a role that I can play, being the council member on that now. But, I had no background really in knowing what had gone on before. And of course, Shannon wasn't there to help me, so.
But we want to honor, like what the mayor is saying, we want to honor the board's,
Right, their
opinion.
discretion.
Yeah.
Right, sure.
So, but maybe at least they could know that we're
Well,
concerned.
and just, I think what Shannon was saying is we ask them every year if they want to continue the contract or go out to bid when you get to those ends. And last year they did vote to continue it. And so it's time to ask again, and we can do that.
They were talking about, really alluding to when they talked about doing a SWOT analysis of what they were getting for their money.
Yeah.
Agency.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we should kind of pursue that and have that conversation. Once again, being mindful of they're the board, but we have the fiduciary responsibility. So I do think doing the analysis, value analysis, which is a little bit deeper than a SWOT, in terms of what they get, in terms of, I know that how that business operates in terms of the financials, in terms of what we're getting, bang for the buck. On that stuff would be great.
Yeah, and I would add, I think as we move forward, and now that we're doing more internal as well, where we used to not, I think you should look at this to some degree like a planning commission and a staff recommendation. So you get a recommendation from the board, but the statute or the actual lodging tax that was approved, set up by ordinance, a tourism advisory council to make recommendations to two groups, and that's the city manager and the city council. And so it's kind of become a little more of like, they make their recommendations and we just plug it in. But I think now that we're involved more and we actually have a lot in-house, I think we should bring, here's the F-tax recommendation and here's the staff recommendation related to, next steps, and then you all get to make a decision. And they may not be aligned all the time, is what I'm saying.
Because we have staff in-house with that skill set, we may be better. There may be a better position to kind of judge and weigh those options.
Yeah. And I probably would kind of just caveat this with the bulk of our expense through the ad agency. And this is what we ran into with our prior ad agency, which if you were to ask for staff's opinion on them, I thought they were doing a great job. A lot of the stuff as residents of Fruita, we don't see. So most of our paid media is ad buys, whether it's through the Colorado Tourism Office, Sojourn, the paid ads on Google, YouTube, et cetera. So there is a lot that goes into that as well. And even if we were to take like paid media in-house, it's not something that this group or maybe even our residents would necessarily see as much. So that's always something we have to kind of factor in the back of our minds. But yeah, out of the whole budget we paid for the contractor, the bulk of it is on paid media. They go to different markets. They have very specific demographics. And it's always been this way, whether it's this ad agency or another, very specific demographics they're trying to reach. So it's always good to kind of just separate that there's the public facing stuff, the Instagram, but also all the targeted material, which we spend a lot on as well.
I get that. And then traditionally with agencies, if they know you're looking, they either step up their game or they're like, we're done. And then they just fall off a cliff. Okay. Right. Any other pot you want to stir?
No.
All right.
No, good job.
All right. Yes. No, that's exactly doing your job. Got a couple things. I'll try to keep this quick. I have been in a fair amount of conversation with our judge in terms of what we talked about. He did get back because I owe you guys a report back. He did get back to me about some stuff on dog ordinance, aligning the theft code, some other information about maybe possible ordinance around hate crimes. And then I know Mike has had a conversation with the chief in terms of what goes to county versus what goes to city. Mike and I talked, I think it would be worthwhile in, we say July, I think it was, to ask Dan to come in, maybe the chief of police to come in and kind of talk through these things so we can give direction on if we want to move forward with the ordinances, change ordinances, and give direction and how that gets written. Okay.
I like that.
Okay, great. On that one, oh, also something else I just learned. I did not know we had a city prosecutor. Yeah, just totally news to me. Came up in a conversation with Mike. I'm like, it completely makes sense. They report to our attorney. So as we look at future evaluations, maybe including some questions on that. I do have some questions about farmers market is starting up this weekend. And there's some concerns about the condition of Reed Park. In terms of bathrooms, electricity. On that, do we think we will have plans for backup for them by this Saturday?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, those are all being worked on, yeah.
Okay.
So there's
By the way, the feedback I got was it's being worked on. You don't need to worry about it.
yeah. No, yeah, not everything, from the beginning, this is gonna be completed in July and farmer's market starts in June. So the grass, there's some markings right now. We've been trying to keep people off of the new turf, but we had to wait for turf before water could be turned on. And then the pavilion is supposed to be the cement tomorrow. So it's all real close. The grass will be open if the power is a little iffy. So we have a backup plan with a generator. And then obviously bathrooms, there was never the plan that bathrooms would be open at this point in time. So there will be porta potties out there and those types of things. So they were kind of going back and forth on whether they were going to have like a bump and jump with water. And so that's been one of the things they're working on. But yeah, Matt stayed back from the Montrose trip just to keep working on that.
And I want to make sure I don't misrepresent. The chamber the answer we kept getting was, don't worry about it. We're working on it. So. Yep. Okay. Was at Rural Philanthropy Days today, be back there tomorrow. They have a lot of people. It's like 380. I mean, it's a lot of people here, so which is great. Mike and I are flying to DC next week. Part of what we have, what we committed to is on the plane, was working on the strategic planning session. So we'll have more information about that coming up soon. And it just as a warning, everybody will have some homework on that one. Hopefully fun homework. We're continuing to work on the MOU with the chamber. That's not quite ready to share. And then if you all are having problems sleeping, there's now the Grand Valley podcast. Greg was over in Palisade, was episode 1. It's on Spotify. I'm now episode 2. So once again, if you, the Grand Valley podcast. And then do we know when the trip is to Denver for the 7-minute presentation?
It's to Montrose.
Oh, I thought it was to Denver. That's better.
It's the week of June 23rd or 24th, but we don't have the date.
Not a
on
specific
it.
date yet. Okay. Mike, do you want to, it's
That's for the grant that Kimberly mentioned earlier that
Right.
the mayor was
Like-
going to join us with. Yeah, for a DOLA grant presentation.
right. Zoom doesn't necessarily work. They prefer in person. And it's 7 minutes. So it's gonna be an incredible 7 minutes though. I think that's all I've got on my list. We did talk about I'm sorry, one other thing, the proclamation of a code of conduct. Are we all in agreement that that is something that's worthwhile doing?
Yeah, like a civility, yes.
Mhm. Yep. So thumbs up in terms of moving forward with that. Okay. That is all I have. Last chance. It's because it's 11 o'clock. All right, thought this was gonna be a shorter one. All right, time is now 10:59. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.